Welcome back, guys. This is Potter Fanfic Hub. Here we explore powerful Harry Potter what-if stories and hidden magic. What if Harry Potter was secretly Regulus Black's true heir, and Hermione was his betrothed? If you enjoy epic magical videos, subscribe to Potter Fanfic Hub. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1: The Hidden Black Heir. The summer before Harry Potter's 11th birthday had been the worst of his life. Not that any of his summers had been particularly wonderful. Living with the Dursleys had a way of making even the sunniest June days feel gray and suffocating. But this summer felt different. Darker. As though the very air around number 4, Privet Drive had thickened with something waiting to happen. Harry lay on his narrow bed in the smallest bedroom of the house, staring up at the cracked ceiling. The tiny room was stifling hot despite the single window being wedged open with a rolled-up sock. From downstairs, he could hear the familiar sounds of his Aunt Petunia bustling about the kitchen, the low rumble of his Uncle Vernon's voice as he complained about something or other, and the distant, grating whine of his cousin Dudley demanding more food. Ordinary sounds. Normal sounds. But Harry had stopped believing in normal about 4 years ago, when the strange things had started happening. The time his hair had grown back overnight after Aunt Petunia had sheared it off in a fit of rage. The time he'd somehow ended up on the roof of the school kitchens while running from Dudley and his gang. The time the glass at the zoo had vanished and a snake had slithered free, winking at him as it escaped. He knew, with the bone-deep certainty of a child who had never been told the truth, that something was wrong with him. Something strange. Something his aunt and uncle hated him for, even if they never explained why. And then there were the dreams. Harry shifted on the bed, the thin mattress creaking beneath him. For the past 3 nights, he'd been dreaming of the same thing, a great dark house looming against the stormy sky, its windows shattered and its walls covered in crawling shadows. A house that seemed to call to him, whisper his name in voices that sounded like leaves rustling in the wind. Harry. Harry Potter, He sat up abruptly, rubbing his eyes. The dream was already fading, slipping away like water through his fingers, but the unease it left behind lingered in his chest. Today was July 30th. Tomorrow, he would turn 11. Tomorrow, he would officially become the age his parents had been when they died. The thought sent a cold shiver through him, though he didn't fully understand why. He knew almost nothing about his parents, only what Aunt Petunia had told him in her bitter, clipped tones. That they'd been freaks. That they'd died in a car crash. That he'd been left on the Dursleys' doorstep like a piece of unwanted luggage. But sometimes, late at night, Harry wondered. Wondered if there was more to the story. Wondered why he felt so empty, so incomplete, as though a vital piece of himself had been torn away and hidden somewhere he could never find. The door to his room suddenly rattled, making him jump. "Boy!" Uncle Vernon's voice boomed through the thin wood. "Get down here! There's post!" Harry blinked, confused. The Dursleys never gave him post. They barely acknowledged his existence except to assign chores or deliver clipped, insulting comments about his oddness. But he scrambled off the bed anyway, his bare feet slapping against the cold floorboards as he made his way to the door. He pulled it open to find Uncle Vernon standing there, his face a blotchy purple-red, his mustache bristling with barely contained fury. In his meaty hand was an envelope. It was old. That was the first thing Harry noticed. The paper was thick and yellowed with age, the edges slightly frayed. It was addressed, in elegant green ink, to Mr. H. Potter. The smallest bedroom. Number 4, Privet Drive. Little. Whinging, Surrey. Harry's breath caught in his throat. The handwriting was beautiful, looping and graceful, the kind of writing that belonged in museums or old storybooks. And the envelope itself seemed to hum with a strange warmth, as though it had been held close to a fire. "Where did this come from?" Uncle Vernon demanded, shaking the envelope in Harry's face. "Who sent it? What kind of trick is this?" I don't know, Uncle Vernon," Harry stammered, his eyes fixed on the envelope. "I've never seen it before." "Liar!" Uncle Vernon's face grew even redder, if that was possible. You think you can play your little freakish games in my house? You think you can? Vernon. Aunt Petunia appeared in the hallway behind her husband, her thin face pinched with disapproval. Just give it to him. It's probably some mistake. Harry had never heard his aunt sound so uncertain. Her eyes darted to the envelope and then away, as though looking at it for too long would burn her. Uncle Vernon thrust the envelope into Harry's chest with enough force to make him stumble backward. Fine. Take it. But if this is some kind of trick, boy, you'll regret it. He turned and stomped away, Aunt Petunia following close behind, her lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. Harry stood in the hallway for a long moment, staring at the envelope in his trembling hands. The paper was warm, as he'd suspected, and it seemed to vibrate ever so slightly, like a living thing. There was no stamp, no postmark, only his name, written in that beautiful green ink. He retreated back into his room and closed the door, his heart pounding. With careful, almost reverent fingers, he slid his thumb under the flap and broke the seal. A strange, floral scent wafted out, and Harry's head swam with sudden dizziness. The room seemed to tilt around him, and for just a moment, he could have sworn he heard a woman's voice, soft and warm, as though she were speaking directly into his ear. My brave boy! Then the dizziness passed, and Harry was left staring at a folded piece of parchment inside the envelope. He pulled it out, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold it. But when he unfolded the parchment, there was no letter inside. Instead, there was a photograph. Harry's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the image. It was moving, the people in it were moving, waving and laughing in a sunlit garden. A man with messy black hair and glasses like Harry's own was grinning at the camera, his arm wrapped around a beautiful woman with red hair and sparkling green eyes. Between them stood a baby with a tuft of black hair, gurgling happily as a small dog of some kind barked at its feet. His parents. Harry had never seen a photograph of them before, not a real one, not one that moved. Aunt Petunia had destroyed every trace of them years ago, claiming she wanted nothing freakish in her house. But here they were. His mother. His father. And the baby. The baby was him. He knew it with absolute certainty, even though he'd never seen pictures of himself as an infant. The same unruly hair, the same green eyes. Hello, Harry. His mother's voice whispered from the photograph. Asterisk. We love you so much. Asterisk. Tears blurred Harry's vision. He blinked rapidly, refusing to let them fall, but his throat had closed up and his chest ached with a pain that felt both new and ancient. How could they be gone? How could they be dead when they looked so alive, so full of love, so real? The photograph faded. Harry gasped, fumbling with the parchment, but it was already dissolving in his hands, turning to dust that scattered in an invisible breeze. The envelope crumbled next, leaving only a small, folded piece of paper that fluttered to the floor. Harry stared at it for a long moment, his heart pounding. Then, with trembling fingers, he reached down and picked it up. It was a note, written in the same elegant green ink. Dear Harry. Asterisk, there are things you must know, things that should have been told to you long ago. The photograph is only the beginning. If you want answers, follow the letter you are about to find. It is hidden in a place that has been waiting for you all your life. Asterisk. Asterisk, trust no one but yourself. The truth is not always kind, but it is always yours. Asterisk. R.A.B. Harry read the note 3 times, his mind racing. R.A.B.? Who was that? And what did they mean by a letter? He just opened the envelope. There was nothing else inside, just the photograph and this note. Unless... Harry's eyes widened. He scrambled to his feet, nearly tripping over his own shoes, and crossed to the small, battered trunk at the foot of his bed. It was old and worn, covered in scratches and faded stickers from places he'd never been. But there was one sticker that had always caught his eye, a faded, peeling image of a castle surrounded by stars. He'd never been able to remove it, no matter how hard he tried. It was as though it was glued to the trunk with something stronger than ordinary adhesive. Now, as he touched the sticker, it glowed. Harry yanked his hand back, his heart racing. The glow spread across the surface of the trunk, illuminating faded stamps and stickers he'd never noticed before. A crack appeared along the top, and the trunk creaked open, revealing a cavernous interior that seemed to go down much farther than it should. Inside was a treasure trove of items Harry had never seen. Schoolbooks with titles like A History of Magic and Magical Theory. A tarnished silver badge that read Head Boy. A pair of round glasses that looked identical to the ones Harry wore. A Gryffindor scarf, the red and gold still vibrant despite its age. But at the very bottom, nestled among the other items, was a letter. It was sealed with a dark wax crest, a shield with a star in the center, surrounded by intricate vines. The letter was addressed, in the same elegant handwriting, to Harry James Potter. To be opened on his 11th birthday. When? The time is right. Harry's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the letter. His heart pounded in his ears as he broke the seal, his fingers fumbling with the thick paper. Inside was a letter, written in the same green ink. My dearest Harry. If you are reading this, then I have succeeded in one part of my plan, and you have succeeded in finding the truth before it was too late. I know you do not know me. I know that the name I am about to give you means nothing to you now. But I hope that, in time, you will understand why I chose you. My name is Regulus Arcturus Black. I was, your godfather's younger brother. But more than that, I was a man who made terrible mistakes and spent the last years of my life trying to atone for them. You see, Harry, I was once a Death Eater. I served the dark wizard who murdered your parents. I believed in his cause, in his vision of a world where pure-blood wizards like myself ruled over all others. I thought I was protecting my family, my legacy, my very existence. I was wrong. By the time I realized the truth, it was too late. I had seen what Lord Voldemort really was, not a savior, not a leader, but a monster who would destroy everything I loved without a second thought. I knew I had to stop him, even if it meant sacrificing myself. I tried to destroy his Horcrux. Do you know what that is, Harry? It is a piece of a soul, torn apart and hidden away to achieve immortality. Voldemort has created many of them, and I found one, a locket that once belonged to Salazar Slytherin himself. I intended to destroy it, to weaken him, to give the world a chance to survive. But I failed. The locket was protected by dark magic I could not overcome, and I died in that cave, betrayed by the very monster I had sworn to serve. Before I died, however, I made a choice. A choice that changed everything. I discovered something, Harry, something I would have never believed possible. I learned that the House of Black, my family, had an ancient power that could not be bought or stolen. It was a power of blood, of magic, of a legacy that went back centuries. And I knew that it could not be trusted to the darkness. It had to be passed to someone worthy, someone with the courage to do what I could not. I don't know if you remember your parents, Harry. I never had the privilege of knowing them well. But I have watched you from the shadows, watched you grow into a boy who carries the weight of a prophecy you do not yet understand. And I have come to believe that you are the one, the only one, who can finish what I started. So I have made you my heir. Through an ancient blood pact, known only to the House of Black, I have passed the legacy of my family to you. The title, the wealth, the magic, all of it is yours now, Harry. You are the true heir of the noble and most ancient House of Black. I know this is a burden. I know you never asked for it, never wanted it. But the world is changing, Harry, and it will need you to be strong. It will need you to be brave. It will need you to be the one who stands against the darkness when no one else can. I have also left you instructions, clues, journals, and artifacts that will help you understand what I have done and why. They are hidden in places that only the true heir of House Black can find. Asterisk. Asterisk. Be careful, Harry. The enemies I made are still out there, and they will not hesitate to destroy you if they discover what you have become. But you are not alone. You will find allies in the most unexpected places, and you will discover strength you never knew you had. Asterisk. Asterisk. I know I am asking a lot of you. I know you are only a child, with a child's fears and a child's dreams. But I have seen the future, Harry, in the stars, in the whispers of the old magic, in the quiet moments before death claimed me. I have seen what you will become. Asterisk. Asterisk. A light in the darkness. A hope for the hopeless. An heir who will restore the honor of a fallen house. Asterisk. Asterisk. I leave you with this final gift, the truth about your parents. They loved you more than anything in the world. They died protecting you, and their love is a magic that not even Voldemort can overcome. Remember that, Harry. Remember them. Asterisk. Always. With all my hope. Regulus Arcturus Black. Harry read the letter 3 times, his tears falling freely now, splashing onto the parchment and smearing the ink. He didn't care. He couldn't stop them. The words washed over him like waves, each one carrying a weight he could barely comprehend. He was the heir of House Black. A Death Eater had chosen him. A man who had died trying to destroy Voldemort had trusted him with everything. And his parents had loved him. They had died for him. Not in a car crash, but fighting against the very darkness Regulus had described. Harry looked down at the letter in his trembling hands, then back at the trunk, which now seemed to glow with a soft, golden light. He reached inside and pulled out the Gryffindor scarf, pressing it to his face and inhaling deeply. It smelled of cinnamon and something like wood smoke, the scent of a place he'd never been but somehow knew. A place called Hogwarts. The next morning, Harry Potter turned 11. He woke to a strange, shimmering light filtering through the window of his room, and for a moment, he thought he was still dreaming. The light wasn't sunlight. It was too soft, too golden, like the glow of 1,000 candles all burning at once. And then he saw the birds. They were perched on the windowsill, dozens of them, owls of every shape and size, their eyes gleaming in the golden light. Each one carried a letter in its beak, and they were all looking at him with an expression that seemed almost expectant. Harry scrambled out of bed, his heart racing. What was happening? The Dursleys would lose their minds if they saw this. But then he remembered. He remembered the letter from Regulus Black, and the secret it had revealed. He remembered the photograph of his parents, their loving smiles, the truth that had been hidden from him for so long. And he understood. This was it. This was the beginning of everything. With trembling hands, Harry reached out and took the first letter from the nearest owl. It was addressed to him in green ink, just like the other letters, and it bore a familiar crest, a shield with a star in the center, surrounded by vines. He broke the seal and began to read. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harry's breath caught in his throat as he read the words. He read them again, and then a third time, just to be sure. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. He was a wizard. He had always known, on some deep, instinctual level, that he was different. That the strange things that happened around him weren't just accidents or coincidences. But to see it in writing, to have it confirmed by this school, this place that was clearly as magical as the letter described. Harry laughed. It was a choked, half-sobbing sound, but it was the happiest he'd felt in his entire life. He read through the rest of the letter, which listed the required books and equipment he would need. He saw words like cauldron, wand, potions, ingredients, and his heart soared. This was real. This was happening. But as the excitement faded, a new thought crept into his mind. Regulus Black. The letter. The secret he'd been entrusted with. Would Hogwarts know about it? Would anyone there understand what it meant to be the heir of House Black? Harry didn't know. But as he looked out at the owls waiting patiently on his windowsill, he felt a strange sense of peace settle over him. He wasn't alone anymore. He had a legacy now, a purpose. And whatever dangers lay ahead, he knew he had to face them. He had to honor Regulus's memory. He had to finish what Regulus had started. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, would become the heir who restored. He climbed out of bed and got dressed, his movements quick and efficient. He could hear the Dursleys moving around downstairs, their voices raised in the familiar morning argument about breakfast and work and neighbors who didn't know how to mind their own business. But Harry didn't care about them anymore. Not really. He had a new family now. A family of magic and mystery, of secrets and sacrifices. A family that had been waiting for him his entire life. The first owl, the one that had carried the Hogwarts letter, hooted softly, and Harry noticed for the first time that it wasn't like the others. It was larger, sleeker, with pure white feathers and piercing amber eyes that seemed to look right through him. There was a small, leather pouch tied to its leg. Harry untied it with shaking fingers and opened it. Inside was a tiny, silver key, no bigger than his thumbnail, and a folded piece of parchment. He unfolded the parchment and read, "To the heir of Black. * Your legacy awaits. Use this key to access the hidden vault beneath Gringotts. There you will find answers to questions you haven't yet thought to ask. **. Be warned, not all secrets are meant to be uncovered. But you, Harry Potter, were always meant to find this one. **. A friend. Harry stared at the key in his palm. It gleamed in the golden light, casting a small, star-shaped shadow on his skin. Vault beneath Gringotts. Legacy. Secrets. He tucked the key into his pocket, feeling its cool weight against his thigh. Then he turned back to the owls, who were still watching him with those patient, knowing eyes. "I have to go," he said aloud, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I have to find out what this means." The white owl hooted softly and spread its wings, as though urging him forward. Harry nodded, took a deep breath, and walked to the door. The Dursleys were waiting for him at the bottom of the stairs, Uncle Vernon with his face purple, and Petunia with her lips pressed into a thin line, and Dudley, who looked confused and vaguely annoyed. "Boy!" Uncle Vernon roared. "What is this? What are all these birds doing at my house? And what is this letter you're holding?" Harry looked down at the Hogwarts letter in his hand, then back up at his uncle. He smiled. "I'm a wizard," he said calmly. "And I'm leaving." The journey to Diagon Alley was a blur. Harry had known about the leaky cauldron from the letter, but finding it had been an adventure in itself. The pub was hidden between a bookshop and a record store, its entrance invisible to the muggles who passed by without a second glance. But to Harry, it was a revelation. The pub was dark and inviting, filled with the smell of old wood and fireplace smoke. The patrons were a mix of strange and wonderful characters, witches and wizards in robes, goblins with long noses and sharp teeth, even a few creatures Harry couldn't identify. They all looked up as he entered, and for a moment, the room fell silent. Then a man in a long, purple cloak stood up and approached him, his face breaking into a wide smile. "Harry Potter!" the man exclaimed, shaking his hand vigorously. "What a pleasure, what a pleasure! I'm Professor Quirrell, but everyone calls me Quirrell. Defense against the dark arts, you know. Or at least I teach it. I'm not very good at it, I'm afraid." Harry blinked, overwhelmed. Hello?" The pub patrons had resumed their conversations, but Harry could feel their eyes on him, curious, watching, assessing. He was the boy who lived, after all. The one who had defeated Voldemort as a baby. He didn't feel like a hero. He just felt small and confused and completely out of his depth. But then he remembered the letter from Regulus Black, and the weight of the key in his pocket. He had a purpose. He had a legacy to uncover. And he had to start with Gringotts. The goblins were terrifying. Harry had read about them in his books, but reading was nothing compared to seeing them in person. They were short and hunched, with sharp teeth and long fingers that seemed to move like spiders. Their eyes were dark and calculating, studying him with an intensity that made his skin crawl. But the key in his pocket gave him courage. "I need to access a vault," Harry said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "A vault that belongs to House Black." The goblin at the counter stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was a harsh, grating sound, like stones grinding together. "House Black," the goblin repeated. "That name has not been spoken in this bank for many years. You are not a black boy. You are a Potter." "I know," Harry said. "But I have this." He pulled the key from his pocket and held it out. The goblin's eyes narrowed, and he leaned forward to examine it. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the key began to glow. The goblin's eyes widened. He snatched the key from Harry's hand and examined it more closely, his long fingers tracing the intricate patterns etched into its surface. "This is a legacy key," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. "A key that only the true heir of House Black could possess." "Where did you get this?" "From a letter," Harry said. "A letter from Regulus Black." The goblin's expression shifted, from shock to something that looked almost like respect. He bowed his head slightly, a gesture that seemed deeply ceremonial. "Then you are the heir," he said. "The heir who was chosen." Harry's heart pounded. "What does that mean? What's in the vault?" The goblin gestured for him to follow. "Come. You will see for yourself." The vault was deeper than any other Harry had visited. The cart ride was terrifying, plunging into the darkness of Gringotts's depths, past caves filled with treasure and monsters. But Harry held on, his eyes fixed on the key in his hand, which seemed to glow brighter the deeper they went. Finally, the cart screeched to a halt in front of a massive stone door. The goblin climbed out and pressed the key into a small, star-shaped indentation in the door. There was a grinding sound, and the door swung open, revealing a cavern that seemed to go on forever. Inside was the most incredible collection of treasures Harry had ever seen. Piles of gold and silver and bronze galleons towered to the ceiling. Jewels glittered in the darkness, emeralds, rubies, diamonds, and stones he couldn't even name. Books lined the walls, their spines ancient and crumbling. There were weapons, too, swords and daggers and staffs that hummed with power. But in the center of the cavern, on a pedestal carved from obsidian, was a single object. A locket. Harry stepped forward, his heart pounding. He knew what it was before he even touched it. The locket was made of heavy gold, with a serpentine S emblazoned on the front. It pulsed with a dark, malevolent energy that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Slytherin's locket," Harry breathed. "Regulus's Horcrux." The goblin nodded. "He could not destroy it. But he hid it here, where no one would ever find it. And now it belongs to you." Harry reached out to touch the locket, but his fingers stopped just short of the cold gold. This was it. This was Voldemort's immortality. This was what Regulus had died trying to destroy. And now, Harry had to finish what Regulus had started. He turned to the goblin, his eyes burning with determination. "Tell me everything you know about Regulus Black. About his plan. About the other Horcruxes." The goblin smiled, revealing sharp, pointed teeth. "I knew you were the one," he said. "Regulus was right about you. You are exactly the heir he hoped you would be." Then he reached into his robes and pulled out a second letter, sealed with the same black crest. "His final message to you," the goblin said. "Read it. And understand." Harry took the letter with trembling hands. He knew, with a certainty he couldn't explain, that everything was about to change. "Dear Harry, I knew you would find this. I knew you would be brave enough, curious enough, strong enough to follow the path I laid for you. And I know, now, that you will be the one to finish what I could not. The locket was only the beginning. There are more Horcruxes, more pieces of Voldemort's soul hidden across the world. I found clues to their whereabouts in the years before my death, clues I have left for you in hidden places. But there is something else. Something I never had the courage to reveal to anyone, not even my brother Sirius. I chose you as my heir not because you were powerful or famous or destined. I chose you because I know, that you have a light in you that I never had. A courage that comes not from fearlessness, but from love. You see, Harry, I fell in love once. With a woman I could never have, a woman whose family had been destroyed by the very monster I served. Her name does not matter now. What matters is that I learned, in loving her, that love is the most powerful magic of all. I learned that love can heal broken hearts. That love can restore shattered families. That love can, if given the chance, even redeem a soul like mine. I gave my life to destroy Voldemort, Harry. But I gave my love to save you. You are the heir of House Black. You are the light that will end the darkness. Trust yourself. Trust those who earn your trust. And never, ever forget that you are not alone. You have your parents' love. You have your friends' love. And you have the love of a coward who became brave in the end. Always. Regulus. Harry folded the letter carefully, his tears falling freely now. He had never felt such a weight of responsibility, or such a sense of purpose. He would do this. He would finish what Regulus started. He would destroy Voldemort, restore the honor of House Black, and honor the sacrifice of a man who had died to give him this chance. And he would do it with love. Because that's what Regulus had taught him, in the end. That love was the most powerful magic of all. Harry took a deep breath, tucked both letters and the locket into his pocket, and turned to face the goblin. "Thank you," he said. "For everything." The goblin nodded. "It is an honor to serve the true heir of House Black. But remember, young Potter, the path ahead is dark and dangerous. You will need allies. You will need courage. And you will need to be willing to sacrifice everything." Harry met the goblin's gaze without flinching. "I know," he said. "And I'm ready." He was lying. He wasn't ready at all. But standing there in the depths of Gringotts, with the weight of a legacy pressing down on his shoulders, Harry made a silent vow to himself and to Regulus Black. He would become the heir who restored honor. He would become the light that ended the darkness. And he would never, ever forget the sacrifice that had made it all possible. The sun was setting over the London skyline as Harry emerged from Gringotts, his pockets full of gold, and his heart full of determination. Diagon Alley was alive with magic, the glow of lanterns, the rustle of robes, the chatter of shoppers and students and shopkeepers. But Harry barely noticed any of it. He was thinking about Regulus Black. A Death Eater. A man who had served the darkness. But a man who had turned against it, who had sacrificed everything to make things right. Harry knew that he would never be perfect. He would make mistakes, just like Regulus had made mistakes. He would stumble and fall and fail, just like everyone else. But he would never give up. He would fight, and he would love, and he would be the heir that Regulus had believed he could become. Tomorrow, he would go to Hogwarts. Tomorrow, he would begin his journey. But tonight, he was just a boy with a legacy and a dream. And that was enough. Far away, in the darkness of a hidden cave, a locket pulsed with dark power. It had been waiting. For years, waiting for the one who would finally destroy it. But it was not afraid. It knew that its time was coming. It knew that the heir would find it, just as Regulus had found it. And it knew that the battle would be fierce and bloody and final. But the locket was patient. It had waited centuries for Voldemort to unleash it upon the world. It could wait a little longer. And when the heir came, it would be ready. The darkness was patient, too. But the light was coming. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, The Last Wish of Regulus. The summer sun had barely risen over Privet Drive when Harry Potter slipped out of his bedroom window for the last time. He moved silently, his worn trainers landing softly on the dew-damp grass below. Behind him, the house sat in smug ignorance of his departure, Uncle Vernon snoring like a walrus, Aunt Petunia already clattering about the kitchen, Dudley's television blaring some early morning cartoon. None of them would notice he was gone until the afternoon at least, and by then, Harry would be long gone. The small beaded bag he carried, a gift from the goblins at Gringotts, enchanted to hold far more than it should, bumped against his hip with each step. Inside were the items from his trunk, the letters from Regulus Black, the Horcrux locket, and a growing collection of books and artifacts he'd acquired over the past few days. Everything he owned. Everything that mattered. Everything that would help him understand who he was. Harry made his way to the end of the street, his heart pounding with equal parts fear and exhilaration. He was leaving. Actually leaving. The Dursleys would never hurt him again, would never lock him in his cupboard or starve him, or make him feel like a freak. Because he wasn't a freak. He was a wizard. He was the heir of House Black. And he had a mission to complete. The Leaky Cauldron was quiet at this hour, the usual patrons still asleep in their rooms above. Tom the barman looked up as Harry entered, his weathered face breaking into a warm smile. "Mr. Potter! Early riser, are you? Would you like some breakfast before you head off?" Harry shook his head, his stomach too knotted with nervous excitement to eat. "No, thank you, Tom. I'm meeting someone. In Diagon Alley." Tom nodded knowingly. "The goblins, I expect. You've been spending a lot of time with them lately." Harry felt a flicker of unease. He'd been careful to keep his visits to Gringotts discreet, to avoid drawing attention to himself. But Tom was observant. He'd been running the Leaky Cauldron for decades, and he'd seen more than his fair share of strange goings-on. "Just some business," Harry said evasively. "Family stuff." If Tom found that answer suspicious, he didn't show it. He simply nodded again and gestured toward the back of the pub. "Well, the alley's open whenever you're ready. And Mr. Potter?" He paused, his expression turning serious. "Be careful out there. There are dangerous times ahead. A boy your age, you shouldn't be carrying such heavy burdens alone." Harry met his eyes, and for a moment, he felt a strange connection to the old man. Tom knew something. He didn't know what, exactly, but he knew that Harry was carrying more than any 11-year-old should. "I'll be fine," Harry said, forcing a smile. "I've got people looking out for me." It wasn't entirely a lie. He had Regulus, in a way. And the goblins, who had been surprisingly helpful since he'd revealed his heritage. And somewhere out there, he had Sirius, his godfather, Regulus's brother, the man who had been imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. But Harry didn't know how to find Sirius. He didn't even know if Sirius was still alive. The goblins had been vague on the details, only telling him that his godfather was unavailable, and that Harry should focus on his studies for now. Focus on his studies. As if learning magic was just a hobby, something to pass the time while the Dark Lord who murdered his parents grew stronger. Harry pushed the thought away and stepped through the archway into Diagon Alley. The street was already bustling with early morning shoppers, their robes swirling around them as they hurried from shop to shop. Harry wove through the crowd, his eyes scanning the familiar storefronts. Flourish and Blots. Ollivander's. The Apothecary. Elop's Owl Emporium, where a dozen different owls hooted and fluttered behind the glass. He had already bought most of his school's supplies. The goblins had been generous with his inheritance, providing him with a generous allowance and access to the Black family vaults. But there were still a few things he needed: books on advanced magic, potions, ingredients that weren't on the standard supply list, and most importantly, a wand. Harry paused in front of Ollivander's, his reflection staring back at him from the dusty window. The shop was small and cramped, filled with thousands of narrow boxes stacked from floor to ceiling. A sign in the window read, "Ollivander's, makers of fine wands since 382 BC. Harry pushed open the door, and a small bell chimed overhead. The interior of the shop was exactly as he'd imagined it, dimly lit, cluttered, and smelling of wood and something faintly metallic. Dust motes danced in the thin beams of light that filtered through the windows, and the silence was almost deafening. And then a voice spoke from somewhere in the shadows. "Harry Potter." Harry jumped, spinning around to face the speaker. An old man emerged from the gloom, his silver eyes sparkling with an intensity that made Harry's skin prickle. He was tall and thin, with white hair that stuck up in all directions, and he moved with a lightness that seemed almost inhuman. Mr. Ollivander? Harry managed, his voice coming out higher than he'd intended. The old man nodded, his gaze sweeping over Harry with an appraisal that felt far too thorough. I was wondering when you would come. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single one. And I remember your mother's wand. Willow, 10¼ inches, swishy, and quite good for charm work. Your father's wand, too. Mahogany, 11 inches, pliable, excellent for transfiguration. Harry's throat tightened. You knew my parents? Of course, of course. They were fine customers. Fine people. Mr. Ollivander's eyes glinted. And you, Mr. Potter, have been a mystery since the day you arrived. I have wondered for 11 years what wand would choose you. The wand chooses the wizard, you know. It's not always clear why. Harry felt a strange sense of kinship with the old man. Mr. Ollivander didn't seem to care about his fame, or his scar, or the prophecy. He only cared about the wand, the tool that would allow Harry to do real magic for the first time in his life. Shall we begin? Mr. Ollivander asked, and Harry nodded. The next hour was a blur of measuring tapes, rejected wands, and mounting frustration. Harry tried wand after wand, beechwood, ash, elm, birch, and yew. He tried lengths from 9 inches to 13, cores of dragon heartstring, unicorn hair, and phoenix feather. Each one felt wrong in his hand, like a shoe that didn't quite fit or a song that was slightly off-key. And then Mr. Ollivander opened a box that had been sitting on a shelf in the very back of the shop, covered in a layer of dust so thick it looked like velvet. This is an unusual wand, Mr. Ollivander said, his voice hushed. Very unusual. It was made for a young man many years ago, but he never collected it. I've kept it all this time, waiting for the right wizard. Harry took the wand, and the moment his fingers closed around it, something clicked. It was like lightning shooting up his arm, a surge of warmth that spread through his entire body. The wand was holly, 11 inches, and it hummed with a power that felt ancient and familiar. He could feel its magic coursing through him, merging with his own, creating a bond that seemed to bypass his rational mind entirely. Curious, Mr. Ollivander murmured, his eyes gleaming. Very curious. What is it? Harry asked, his voice barely a whisper. Phoenix feather core, Mr. Ollivander said. And not just any phoenix feather. The same phoenix whose tail feather resides in the wand of the wizard who gave you that scar. You share a core, Mr. Potter. Your wand and his. Harry felt a cold chill run down his spine. Voldemort's wand? Yes. Mr. Ollivander's voice was thoughtful, almost clinical. But that is not what makes this wand so interesting. What makes it interesting is who commissioned it. Harry's grip on the wand tightened. Who? Regulus Arcturus Black. The name hung in the air like a spell, heavy with meaning and significance. Harry stared at the wand in his hand. This wand, this powerful, beautiful, perfect wand, had been meant for him. Regulus had commissioned it years before Harry was born, had ordered it, and then never collected it. Why? How could he have known that Harry would one day need it? I don't understand, Harry said, his voice shaking. How did he know? I wasn't even born yet. Mr. Ollivander smiled mysteriously. There are things in this world, Mr. Potter, that cannot be explained by logic or reason. The stars speak to some. The old magic whispers to others. And Regulus Black, despite everything, was a young man who listened. He reached into his robes and pulled out a small, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and crumbling with age. He left this for you. He told me to give it to the wizard who would one day claim this wand. I have waited 11 years to deliver it. Harry took the book with trembling hands. It was old and worn, the cover embossed with the Black family crest, a shield with a star at its center, surrounded by intricate vines. He opened it carefully, and his eyes fell on the first page, where a familiar handwriting greeted him. To my heir. Asterisk, if you are reading this, then you have found the wand I commissioned for you. I hoped you would. I planned for it, just as I planned for many things. This journal contains my final thoughts, my deepest secrets, and the truth about why I chose you. Asterisk. Asterisk, read it carefully. Understand it. And never forget that you were chosen not by fate, but by love. Asterisk. R.A.B. Harry closed the book, his heart pounding. He looked up at Mr. Ollivander, who was watching him with an expression that was both wise and sad. "Thank you," Harry said. "For everything." Mr. Ollivander nodded. "Go, Mr. Potter. Your journey is just beginning. And remember, the wand chooses the wizard. But sometimes, the wizard chooses the wand, too." Harry pocketed the book and the wand and stepped out of Ollivander's, into the bright, bustling street. His journey was just beginning. And he had a feeling that it was going to be anything but ordinary. Harry found a quiet corner in Fortescue's ice cream parlor, and ordered a small bowl of chocolate and raspberry, though he barely touched it. His attention was fixed on the journal in his hands, his fingers tracing the elegant letters of Regulus's handwriting. The journal was divided into sections, each one marked with a date and a location. The earliest entries were from when Regulus was a student at Hogwarts, young, ambitious, desperate to prove himself to his family and friends. Harry could feel the arrogance in those early words, the certainty that Regulus was destined for greatness. But as the journal progressed, the tone began to shift. The entries became darker, more desperate. Regulus wrote about his growing disillusionment with the Death Eaters, his horror at the violence they committed in Voldemort's name. He wrote about his brother Sirius, their falling out, the pain of being rejected by his own blood, and he wrote about his parents, who had been so proud of him, so blind to the monster he was becoming. And then, in the later entries, Regulus wrote about the cave. Harry felt his stomach turn as he read the description. Regulus and Creature, his mother's loyal house elf, had gone to the cave together. They had found the basin filled with a green, glowing potion, and Regulus had forced Creature to drink it, knowing that the elf would be cursed, knowing that he himself would be horribly burned by the inferi that guarded the locket. It was a brutal, harrowing account, written in the moments before Regulus had made his final sacrifice. And at the end of it, there was a message. Asterisk. I have stolen the Horcrux. I have given my life to destroy it. But I cannot complete the task myself. I must trust that the one who finds this journal will finish what I started. Asterisk. Harry closed the journal, his eyes burning with unshed tears. He didn't know why he was crying. He'd never met Regulus, had only learned of his existence a few days ago. But the sacrifice, the bravery, the sheer love that Regulus had shown in those final moments, it was overwhelming. I will finish what you started, Harry whispered. I promise. A cool breeze swept through the parlor, carrying with it the faint scent of flowers. And for just a moment, Harry could have sworn he felt a hand on his shoulder, warm, reassuring, gone in an instant. He looked around, but no one was there. Just the memory of a man who had given everything to make the world a better place. The rest of the day was spent in a whirlwind of activity. Harry used his allowance to buy the books he needed, advanced texts on dark arts defense, ancient runes, and protective magic. He stocked up on potions ingredients, bought a new cauldron, and even picked up a slightly battered copy of the Tales of Beetle the Bard, which the shopkeeper had recommended. But the journal stayed with him, a constant weight in his bag. He read it whenever he had a spare moment, on the train back to the Leaky Cauldron, in the pub's small dining room over a plate of roast beef, and late into the night, by the light of a single candle. Regulus's story unfolded in those pages like a confession. He had been born into the Black family, one of the oldest and most powerful pure-blood families in the wizarding world. His parents, Orion and Walburga Black, had raised him to believe in blood purity and the supremacy of purebloods. They had celebrated his sorting into Slytherin, and they had encouraged his friendship with the young dark wizards who would one day become Death Eaters. Regulus had been a golden boy, handsome, brilliant, charming. He had excelled at every subject, earned the respect of his professors, and won the heart of a beautiful young witch named Narcissa Malfoy, who would later marry someone else. But beneath the surface, Regulus was struggling with the realization that his family's values were built on a foundation of lies. His brother Sirius had been the first to rebel, running away from home at the age of 16, severing all ties with the family, living with the Potters. Regulus had been appalled by his brother's betrayal, and he'd thrown himself even deeper into the Death Eater cause, determined to prove that he was the true heir to the Black legacy. But the older he got, the more he saw the darkness behind Voldemort's promises. He saw the torture, the murder, the destruction of families like his own. He saw innocent people dying for a cause that was based on nothing but hatred and fear. And when Voldemort demanded the sacrifice of his house elf creature, Regulus made a choice. He betrayed the Dark Lord, stole the Horcrux, and gave his own life to prevent the locket from ever falling into enemy hands. I have failed in many things. Regulus wrote near the end of the journal. I have failed my family, my friends, and the brother who still loves me, despite everything. But I will not fail in this one thing. I will not let Voldemort win. I will destroy his Horcrux, or die trying. Harry closed the journal, his tears flowing freely now. He didn't care if anyone saw him. He was too overwhelmed to care. Regulus had been a Death Eater. He had done terrible things in service to Voldemort. But in the end, he had turned against the darkness, found the courage to fight for what was right, and died to protect the world from a monster he had once served. He was a hero. Not a perfect hero, but a real one. And Harry was determined to honor his sacrifice. The days before September 1st passed in a blur. Harry stayed at the Leaky Cauldron, venturing into Diagon Alley each day to buy supplies and learn more about the magical world. He devoured his textbooks, reading them cover to cover, absorbing every detail about spells, potions, and magical creatures. He also spent time with the goblins, who had proven to be surprisingly helpful. They had provided him with access to the Black family library, which contained ancient texts on dark magic, defensive charms, and the history of the magical world. They had also given him a small, silver locket, identical to the one that held Voldemort's Horcrux, that was enchanted to protect him from curses and detection. Regulus was a smart man. Griphook, the goblin who had escorted him to the vault, explained. He knew that one day, someone would have to follow in his footsteps. He left behind a trail of breadcrumbs for you to follow. It is up to you to find them. But the search wasn't just about finding clues. It was about understanding Regulus, his dreams, his fears, his hopes for the future. Harry spent hours reading Regulus's journals, piecing together the story of a man who had been both broken and redeemed. And through it all, there was one question that kept echoing in Harry's mind: why me? He was just a boy. An ordinary boy, orphaned and alone, with no special talents or abilities. How had Regulus chosen him? How had he known that Harry would be the one to carry the legacy of House Black? The answer came on the last night before he left for Hogwarts. Harry was reading one of Regulus's later journals, an entry dated just weeks before his death. The handwriting was shaky, clearly written in moments of pain and exhaustion, but the words were clear. I have seen the future, Harry. I have seen the boy you will become. A boy who will carry the weight of a prophecy on his shoulders, who will face darkness that would break lesser men, who will defeat the monster that I could not. You are not special because of your birth or your family. You are special because of your heart. You are kind, brave, and compassionate, qualities that the Black family has always lacked. You will restore the honor of my family, not because you are destined to, but because you choose to be. Harry read the passage 3 times, tears blurring his vision. He had never felt special. He had never felt chosen. But standing in the candlelight of his room at the Leaky Cauldron, surrounded by the relics of a legacy he was still learning to understand, he realized that Regulus was right. He could become the heir that Regulus had dreamed of. He could restore the honor of House Black. He could defeat Voldemort and bring peace to the magical world. But he couldn't do it alone. The morning of September 1st dawned bright and clear, the air filled with the promise of adventure. Harry stood on the platform at King's Cross Station, his trunk packed and his wand tucked safely into his robes. He watched as other families said their goodbyes, mothers crying, fathers patting their children on the back, siblings bickering over who got the best compartment on the train. And then he heard a familiar voice. "Harry! Harry, over here!" Harry turned to see a young boy with red hair and a round face waving at him frantically. The boy was flanked by a group of other red-haired children, a girl with bushy brown hair, a younger boy with a missing front tooth, and a pair of twins who looked like they had just finished pulling a prank. "Who are you?" Harry asked, feeling suddenly shy. "I'm Ron Weasley," the boy said, sticking out his hand. "I'm going to Hogwarts, too. It's my first year. I've heard about you, Harry. You're famous." Harry felt his cheeks flush. "I'm not famous. I'm Harry." Ron beamed. "Nice to meet you, Harry. This is my sister, Hermione, and my brothers, Fred and George. We're all going to Hogwarts. Well, Hermione's going to be in her second year, but she's a real know-it-all, so she'll probably end up teaching everyone anyway." Hermione rolled her eyes. "I am not a know-it-all. I just like to be prepared." Harry smiled despite himself. There was something comforting about this family, about their warmth and humor and obvious affection for each other. He wished, not for the first time, that he had a family like this. But then he remembered Regulus. He remembered the letters and the journals and the promise he'd made. He remembered that he had a family, too, a family that was waiting for him to find his place in the world. "Come on," Ron said, grabbing Harry's arm. "Let's find a compartment before all the good ones are taken." Harry allowed himself to be dragged along, his heart lighter than it had been in days. He was going to Hogwarts. He was going to learn magic. He was going to make friends and discover who he truly was. And he was going to finish what Regulus had started. He didn't know how long it would take, or what sacrifices he would have to make along the way. But he knew, with a certainty that felt like a calling, that he was ready to face the future. Whatever it held. The train was already pulling out of the station when Harry and his new friends found a compartment. They settled in, their trunks stowed away and their robes neatly folded, and Harry took out the journal for the 100th time. He opened it to a later page, where Regulus had written a list of instructions for the true heir. *, when you arrive at Hogwarts, seek out the portrait of Finis Nigellus Black. He will know how to reach me. He will also know the location of my final gift, a Horcrux that I hid in the Chamber of Secrets. You will need to speak Parseltongue to open it. I have left you the means to do so. *. Harry felt his heart skip a beat. The Chamber of Secrets. He had read about it in his books, a legendary chamber beneath the school that had been created by Salazar Slytherin. It was said to contain a monster that could kill with a single glance. And Regulus had hidden a Horcrux there. How? How had he managed to do that without anyone noticing? Harry didn't know. But he was determined to find out. "I'm going to the bathroom," he announced, standing up abruptly. "Be back in a minute." Ron and Hermione barely looked up from their conversation about Quidditch. Harry slipped out of the compartment and made his way through the crowded train, his heart pounding with excitement. He didn't go to the bathroom, of course. He found an empty compartment and locked the door, then pulled out the journal again. This time, he went to the very back of the journal, where a secret pocket had been sewn into the leather cover. He carefully removed the stitch, revealing a small, folded piece of parchment. It was a map. Harry unfolded it carefully, his eyes scanning the complex network of lines and symbols. It showed the layout of Hogwarts Castle, with secret passages and hidden rooms marked in red ink. And in the center of it all, there was a single word. Chamber. Harry stared at the map, his mind racing. This was it. This was the path to Regulus's final gift. He folded the map and tucked it into his pocket, feeling a surge of determination. He had a mission now, a clear, tangible goal. He would find the Chamber of Secrets, destroy the Horcrux, and continue the work that Regulus had started. But first, he had to survive his first year at Hogwarts. And that, he suspected, would be challenge enough. The rest of the train ride was a whirlwind of excitement and nervous anticipation. Harry learned about the Hogwarts houses, Gryffindor, Slytherin, Hufflepuff, and Ravenclaw, and the sorting ceremony that would determine his fate. He listened to Ron's endless stories about his family's history at the school and Hermione's lectures on the importance of academic excellence. And through it all, he kept his secret close to his chest. No one knew about Regulus Black. No one knew about the Horcrux, or the legacy, or the mission Harry had taken on. It was his burden to carry, and he would carry it alone. But as the train pulled into Hogsmeade Station and the group of first-year students prepared to leave, Harry felt something unexpected. He felt hope. He was starting a new life. He was leaving behind the pain and fear of the past 11 years and stepping into a world of magic and wonder. He was fulfilling Regulus's dream of restoring honor to House Black. He was becoming the heir he was always meant to be. And as he looked up at the majestic silhouette of Hogwarts Castle, Harry whispered a single word into the night. Always. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. The Ancient Betrothal Contract. The Great Hall of Hogwarts was everything Harry had dreamed it would be, and nothing at all like he'd expected. Floating candles drifted overhead like a constellation of captured stars, their light reflecting off the enchanted ceiling that showed the night sky in all its glory. The 4 long house tables stretched from one end of the cavernous hall to the other, laden with golden plates and goblets that gleamed in the flickering light. And at the far end, on a raised dais, sat the staff table, a collection of witches and wizards whose presence seemed to fill the room with an almost tangible power. But Harry barely noticed any of it. His eyes were fixed on the sorting hat, a battered old pointed hat that sat on a 3-legged stool at the front of the hall. The hat was singing a long, rambling song about the founding of Hogwarts and the qualities each house valued. Harry tried to listen, he really did, but his mind was elsewhere. Specifically, it was on the journal in his pocket, and the map that showed the way to the Chamber of Secrets. How was he going to find the chamber without anyone noticing? How was he going to destroy a Horcrux when he barely knew how to perform a basic spell? And what about the other Horcruxes? Regulus had mentioned that there were more, but he'd been vague about the details. Harry's musings were interrupted by a sharp nudge from Ron Weasley, who was sitting next to him at the Gryffindor table. "Mate, you're spacing out," Ron whispered, his voice eager. "Look, she's going to call your name any minute now." "The Potters," he grinned. "Well, you'll be famous, won't you?" Harry forced a smile, but his stomach was doing backflips. He'd never been comfortable with fame, and the thought of the entire school watching him as he was sorted was almost too much to bear. "Potter, Harry!" Professor McGonagall's voice rang out across the hall, and Harry's heart leaped into his throat. He stood up on shaky legs, his palms sweating, and walked to the front of the hall. The whispers followed him like a trail of ghosts. "Harry Potter? The Harry Potter? Look at his scar! I thought he'd be taller." Harry ignored them. He sat down on the stool, and Professor McGonagall lowered the sorting hat onto his head. And then the hat spoke. "Difficult," it murmured into his ear. "Very difficult. You have courage, yes, plenty of it. And a thirst to prove yourself. But I see something else, too. Something hidden. Something that has been waiting for you your entire life." Harry's breath caught in his throat. "What do you mean?" "Legacy, Harry Potter. The legacy of a house you never knew. The burden of a name you never wanted." The hat's voice was thoughtful, almost sad. "I see Regulus in you. Not his darkness, but his hope. His sacrifice. His dream of redemption." Harry's heart pounded. Did the hat know? Did it know about the Horcrux, the letters, the mission he'd been given? Could it see the weight he carried? "It sees everything," the hat said, as if reading his thoughts. "But not everything is meant to be spoken aloud. You will find your path, Harry Potter. You will fulfill your destiny. But you will not do it alone." "Then where do I belong?" Harry asked, desperate. "Where can I honor his memory? Where can I—" "Gryffindor!" the hat shouted, and the hall erupted in cheers. Harry blinked, stunned. Gryffindor. The house of the brave and the bold. The house his parents had belonged to, the house his godfather Sirius had been sorted into despite his family's long history in Slytherin. He felt a surge of relief as he made his way to the Gryffindor table, where Ron was clapping him on the back and Hermione was beaming with pride. He had been sorted. He belonged somewhere. He had a family again. But as the feast began, Harry's attention drifted back to the journal in his pocket. He had made it to Hogwarts, just as Regulus had planned. He had been sorted into the house Regulus had believed would give him the best chance of success. Now he just had to find the chamber. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of classes, homework, and getting to know his new surroundings. Harry had expected magic to be difficult, but he hadn't expected it to be so, well, magical. The first charms class, where Professor Flitwick taught them to make a feather float, was exhilarating. The first potions class, where Professor Snape glared at him from the moment he walked through the door, was terrifying. The first defense against the dark arts class, where Professor Quirrell stammered about vampires and werewolves, was underwhelming. But through it all, Harry felt a growing sense of belonging. He and Ron had become fast friends, bonding over their shared love of Quidditch and their mutual dislike of Draco Malfoy. And Hermione, despite her bossy know-it-all tendencies, had proven to be a loyal and invaluable ally. And then there was the matter of the chamber. Harry had spent every free moment studying the map Regulus had left him, trying to figure out how to access the legendary chamber beneath the school. But the map was frustratingly vague. It showed the layout of the castle in detail, but the entrance to the chamber was marked only by a cryptic symbol that Harry didn't recognize. He tried asking the portraits, but they'd either ignored him or given him riddles that made no sense. He tried searching the library, but the books on Slytherin's legacy were either vague or, in some cases, missing entirely. And then, one afternoon in late September, Harry's luck changed. He was sitting in the library, trying to focus on his Transfiguration essay, when Hermione slid into the seat across from him. She had a stack of books in her arms, and her eyes were gleaming with excitement. "Harry, you won't believe what I found." Harry looked up, startled. "What?" Hermione placed a thick, leather-bound book on the table between them. Its cover was cracked and faded, and it smelled of dust and old parchment. On the front, embossed in gold lettering, were the words, "The noble and most ancient houses of the wizarding world." "I found it in the restricted section," Hermione said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I shouldn't have been there, but I had to know, I had to understand." "Understand what?" Harry asked, feeling a growing sense of unease. Hermione opened the book, her fingers tracing the intricate illustrations on the pages. "I was looking for information on House Black. I know you've been asking questions about them, and I thought you deserved to know the truth." Harry felt his stomach drop. "What truth?" Hermione pointed to a page near the middle of the book. It was covered in elegant calligraphy, with the Black family crest emblazoned at the top. Beneath it was a long, detailed history of the family, their estates, their alliances, and their role in the wizarding world. But it was the note at the bottom of the page that caught Harry's attention. Asterisk. In 1979, Regulus Arcturus Black, the second son of Orion and Walburga Black, entered into an ancient magical contract, a betrothal pact that would bind the heir of House Black to the brightest witch of his generation. The contract was sealed in blood and magic, and its terms have never been broken. Asterisk. Harry stared at the words, his mind reeling. A betrothal contract? Regulus had been betrothed? To whom? He read on, his heart pounding. Asterisk. The identity of the betrothed was kept secret by the Black family, as per the terms of the contract. It is believed that the witch in question was a Muggle born of extraordinary magical ability, whose lineage was traced back to a distant ancestor who possessed magical powers. The contract stipulated that should Regulus Black fail to produce an heir before his death, the contract would pass to the next rightful heir of House Black. Asterisk. Harry's blood turned to ice. The next rightful heir. That was him. He was Regulus's heir, the one who had been chosen to carry on the family legacy. And if the contract had passed to him... "Harry, are you okay?" Hermione asked, her voice filled with concern. "You've gone pale." Harry looked up at her, his mind racing. The contract. Who was Regulus betrothed to? Was there a name? A description? Hermione shook her head. "That's the thing. I couldn't find any record of the witch's identity. It's like she was erased from history. But there's something else, something I thought you should see." She turned to a different page, where a small, handwritten note had been tucked between the pages. The handwriting was old, faded, and unmistakably familiar. "To my heir," the note read. Asterisk. "If you are reading this, you know the truth about the betrothal contract. I had hoped that the contract would bind me to the one I loved, but fate had other plans. It is up to you to find her, the witch who will stand beside you in the darkness, who will fight with you against the forces that seek to destroy us. She is out there, waiting for you. You will know her when you find her. Trust in the bond that connects you, a bond that has been forged by blood, magic, and sacrifice." Asterisk. Harry's hands were trembling. This couldn't be real. It couldn't be happening. He was 11 years old, for Merlin's sake. He didn't want to be betrothed to anyone. "I have to go," he said, standing abruptly. "I have to. I need to see the goblins." "Harry, wait." Hermione grabbed his arm. "The goblins won't see you without an appointment, and you don't even know what you're looking for. Let me help you." "Let me." Harry shook his head. "You don't understand, Hermione. This is about Regulus. This is about the mission he gave me. I can't let anyone. I can't." He stopped, his voice catching in his throat. Hermione's eyes were filled with hurt and confusion, and Harry felt a wave of guilt wash over him. "I'm sorry," he said more softly. I need some time to think. I'll see you at dinner, okay?" He turned and walked away, leaving Hermione staring after him. Harry didn't go to dinner that night. Instead, he found an empty classroom on the 3rd floor and locked himself inside, his heart pounding and his hands shaking. He needed to process what he'd just learned. He needed to understand what it meant for his future. A betrothal contract. Regulus had been bound by an ancient magical contract to a witch of extraordinary talent. And now that contract had passed to Harry. But who was this witch? And how was Harry supposed to find her? He pulled out Regulus's journal, flipping to the later entries. He'd skipped over them earlier, too focused on the practical details of the mission to pay attention to the more personal notes. But now, as he read them carefully, his heart began to sink. "I have fallen in love with a woman I can never have," Regulus wrote. Asterisk. "She is Muggle-born, brilliant, and kind. She sees me for who I am, not for the name I carry or the darkness I serve. But I cannot love her the way she deserves. The contract binds me to another, a witch I have never met, a future I cannot control. I am trapped between duty and desire, and I do not know which path to take." Asterisk. Harry felt a lump form in his throat. Regulus had loved someone. A Muggle-born, despite his family's obsession with blood purity. A woman who had seen the good in him, even when he couldn't see it himself. "I will not live to see the contract fulfilled," Regulus continued. Asterisk. "I know this now. My days are numbered, and I will never marry the witch who is meant for me. But perhaps, just perhaps, my heir will have better luck. Perhaps the bond that connects me to her will pass to him, giving him a chance at the love I could never have." Asterisk. Harry closed the journal, his eyes burning with unshed tears. Regulus had been a hero in so many ways, a Death Eater who had turned against Voldemort, a brother who had sacrificed himself to protect his family, a man who had given his life to destroy a Horcrux. But he had also been a man in love. A man who had longed for connection, for companionship, for someone to share his burden. And now that burden had fallen to Harry. He didn't want a betrothal contract. He didn't want to be bound to someone he'd never met, someone he might not even like. But as he sat in the empty classroom, surrounded by the silence of the castle, Harry realized that he didn't have a choice. The contract was already in effect. And if Regulus was right, the witch it had chosen was out there, waiting for Harry to find her. He just had to figure out who she was. The next few weeks were a blur of research and frustration. Harry spent every free moment in the library, scouring books on ancient magic and betrothal contracts. He questioned the portraits, visited the goblins at Gringotts during his Hogsmeade weekends, and even tried to contact the ghost of his godfather Sirius, who seemed to have vanished from the face of the earth. But every lead turned into a dead end. The records of the contract were sealed, protected by magic that even the most skilled wizards couldn't break. The identity of Regulus's betrothed was a closely guarded secret, known only to the Black family, and they were all either dead or on the run. Harry was beginning to lose hope when a surprising source of information appeared. It was late one evening, and Harry was trudging back to Gryffindor Tower after another failed attempt to access the restricted section. He was tired, frustrated, and ready to give up on the whole stupid contract when he heard a voice behind him. "Mr. Potter." Harry spun around to find Professor Snape standing in the middle of the corridor, his black robes billowing around him like bat wings. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes gleamed with an intensity that made Harry's skin crawl. "Professor," Harry said, his voice carefully neutral. You were just breaking curfew." Snape interrupted, his voice dripping with contempt. "But I have no intention of giving you a detention, not tonight. I have something more important to discuss." Harry's heart raced. "What is it?" Snape gestured for him to follow, and Harry found himself walking beside his potions professor through the dark, winding corridors of the castle. They stopped outside an ornate door that Harry had never noticed before. Snape whispered a password, and the door swung open, revealing a small, circular room filled with flickering candles and ancient portraits. "This is the room of requirement," Snape said. "It shows itself only to those who truly need it." Harry blinked, confused. "Why are you showing me this?" Snape turned to face him, his expression more serious than Harry had ever seen it. "Because, Mr. Potter, there are things about your legacy that even you do not know. Things that must be revealed before you can proceed." He reached into his robes and pulled out a small, leather-bound book, identical to the one Harry had found in the journal. But this one was sealed with a silver clasp, and it glowed with a faint, ethereal light. "This was given to me by Regulus Black," Snape said, "before he died. He instructed me to give it to his heir, the one who would carry on his work. I have waited 11 years to deliver it." Harry took the book with trembling hands. He broke the seal and opened it, his eyes scanning the pages. And what he saw made his blood run cold. It was a copy of the betrothal contract, the same one he'd read about in the library. But this copy was different. This copy had names. Regulus Arcturus Black, heir of the noble and most ancient house of Black, is hereby betrothed to. Harry's breath caught in his throat. He read the name, and his mind refused to believe what he was seeing. Hermione Jean Granger, heiress of the line of Dagworth Granger, brightest witch of her generation. Harry stared at the words, his mind spinning. Hermione. His betrothed was Hermione. "Impossible," he whispered. "She's Muggle-born. She doesn't have a magical lineage. The Granger family has a long and proud magical heritage." Snape interrupted, his voice cold. "They trace their line back to Hector Dagworth Granger, one of the most famous potioneers in wizarding history. The blood runs deep, even if it was hidden for generations. The contract recognized Hermione's potential before she even knew magic existed." Harry felt like the ground had been yanked out from under him. Hermione. His friend, his study partner, the girl who had been there for him since the moment they met. She was the one who was supposed to share his burden, his legacy, his future. But she didn't know. She didn't know about the contract, about Regulus, about the mission he was carrying. "I can't tell her," Harry said, his voice shaking. "She'll think I'm crazy. She'll She will think you are being honest, Snape interrupted. And that is more than most people in this world can say. The contract does not force love, Mr. Potter. It binds two souls through shared magical resonance, a connection that grows stronger the more you trust and protect each other. But it cannot force either of you to feel something you do not. Harry stared at the book in his hands, his mind racing. Hermione. His betrothed was Hermione. The brightest witch of her generation. The one who had seen him at his worst and still chose to stand by him. The one who had risked everything to help him, even when she didn't fully understand his mission. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a gift. Harry didn't sleep that night. He lay in his bed, staring up at the canopy, his mind churning with thoughts of Hermione and Regulus and the contract that had changed everything. He thought about his parents, how they had loved each other, how they had died for each other. He thought about Regulus, how he had loved a woman he could never have, how he had made the ultimate sacrifice to protect a future he would never see. And then he thought about Hermione. She was brilliant, loyal, and brave. She was everything he could have wanted in a friend, and, he was beginning to realize, everything he could have wanted in a partner. But they were 11 years old. They were just children. How could they be expected to carry the weight of an ancient contract? Harry closed his eyes, and a vision appeared in his mind, a vision of Hermione smiling at him, her brown eyes warm with affection, her hand reaching out to touch his. And beneath the vision, Harry felt something else. A warmth, a resonance, as Snape had called it. A connection that went deeper than friendship, deeper than trust. It was the contract binding them together. And despite everything, Harry felt a surge of hope. He wasn't alone. He had Hermione. He had the brightness of her mind and the strength of her heart. Together, they could face whatever darkness lay ahead. The next morning, Harry found Hermione in the Gryffindor common room, reading a book on advanced arithmancy. Hermione, he said, his voice shaking slightly. We need to talk. She looked up, her expression wary. Is everything okay? You've been avoiding me for weeks. I know, Harry said, sitting down across from her. And I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth from the beginning. Hermione closed her book, her eyes fixed on him. Told me what? Harry took a deep breath. It's about the betrothal contract. I found out who it's for. Hermione's eyes widened. Who? Harry met her gaze, his heart pounding. You, Hermione. The contract binds the heir of House Black to the brightest witch of her generation. And that's you? Hermione stared at him, her mouth hanging open. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. And then she laughed. It was a startled, disbelieving laugh, but it was also warm. You're joking, she said. You have to be joking. Harry shook his head. I'm not joking. It's real, Hermione. The contract was made by Regulus Black, and it passed to me when I became his heir. Hermione's laughter faded, replaced by an expression of intense concentration. She stood up, pacing back and forth in front of the fireplace. This is impossible, she said. I'm mother-born. My parents are dentists. There's no way I have magical ancestry. There is, Harry interrupted. Snape showed me the records. You're descended from Hector Dadworth Granger. He was one of the most famous potioneers in history. The blood runs deep, it just got hidden over time. Hermione stopped pacing, her eyes wide with shock. Dadworth Granger? But that would mean... It means the contract recognized you, Harry said. It recognized your potential, your brilliance, your what? Hermione asked, her voice suddenly sharp. Harry felt his cheeks flush. You're everything. The contract doesn't force love, Hermione. But it creates a connection, a magical resonance, between us. It gets stronger the more we trust and protect each other. Hermione was silent for a long moment. Then she walked over to him and sat down on the sofa, her knees brushing against his. Show me, she said. Show me the contract. Harry pulled out the leather-bound book and handed it to her. She took it with trembling fingers, her eyes scanning the pages. As she read, her expression shifted, from shock to disbelief to something that looked almost like wonder. "It's real," she whispered. "It's actually real." "Yes," Harry said. "And Hermione, I know this is a lot to process. I know you didn't ask for this. But I need you to know that I'm not going to force anything. You don't have to." "Stop." Hermione held up her hand, her voice firm. "Just stop." Harry fell silent, watching her with bated breath. Hermione took a deep breath, then looked him in the eye. "Harry, I've known you for 2 months. In that time, you've been the most loyal, brave, and selfless person I've ever met. You've carried the weight of a prophecy on your shoulders without complaining, without asking for help, without—" She paused, her voice catching. "Without letting anyone in." Harry opened his mouth to protest, but Hermione shook her head. "I'm not finished," she said. "I know about the contract now. And I know it's not something either of us chose. But if it's real, if it's truly the will of ancient magic, then maybe we should give it a chance." Harry stared at her, stunned. You're okay with this?" Hermione smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "I'm not okay with it," she said. "I'm terrified. But I'm also willing to try. Because you're worth it, Harry. You're worth everything." Harry's heart swelled with emotion. He reached out and took Hermione's hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. Together, they would face the darkness. Together, they would fulfill Regulus's dream. And together they would prove that love, true love, was the most powerful magic of all. The end of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, A Bond Neither Expected. The days following the revelation of the betrothal contract were strange for Harry. Not bad, exactly, just strange. He found himself acutely aware of Hermione in ways he'd never been before. The way her hair caught the firelight in the common room. The way her brow furrowed when she was deep in concentration. The way her laugh, rare and precious, could light up an entire room. He'd noticed these things before, of course. Hermione was his friend, his study partner, the one person who never looked at him with pity or fear. But now, there was something else, a warmth that spread through his chest whenever she was near, a sense of rightness that he couldn't quite explain. It was the bond, he realized. The magical resonance that Snape had mentioned. It was growing stronger, weaving itself into the fabric of their friendship, transforming it into something deeper and more profound. Harry didn't know if it was real love or just the influence of the contract. He didn't know if it mattered. What he did know was that Hermione was his betrothed. And despite everything, despite his fear, his uncertainty, his overwhelming sense of being in over his head, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. The first sign that the bond was more than just a piece of parchment came during their first Quidditch match. Harry had been nervous enough already. It was his first game, his first chance to prove himself as the youngest Seeker in a century. The entire school was watching, including Professor Snape, who was refereeing and seemed to be taking a perverse pleasure in making Harry's life difficult. But when the golden snitch appeared, Harry's focus sharpened to a razor's edge. He dove after it, his broom cutting through the air like a knife, his eyes fixed on the tiny, fluttering ball of gold. And then something strange happened. He felt Hermione's presence, not physically, but magically. It was like a warm hand on his shoulder, a voice in his ear whispering words of encouragement. The connection between them flared to life. And suddenly Harry was faster, more agile, more in tune with the world around him. He caught the snitch. He won the match. And when he landed, Hermione was there, her face flushed with excitement, her eyes shining with pride. "Did you feel that?" Harry asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hermione nodded, her hand finding his. "I felt it. It was like I was flying with you." Harry's heart swelled. He squeezed her hand, and for a moment, the rest of the world faded away. They didn't need to say anything else. The bond said it all. The second sign came during their first real adventure together. It was Halloween, and Harry had just learned that a troll had gotten into the castle. His first instinct was to run, but then he heard Hermione's voice in his head, sharp and desperate. Harry, I'm in the girls' bathroom. Help me, asterisk. He didn't stop to question how he'd hurt her. He just ran. The troll was enormous, its skin the color of swamp water, its club the size of a small tree. It was swinging wildly, smashing sinks and toilets into rubble. And Hermione was cowering in the corner, her wand raised, her face pale with terror. Hermione! Harry shouted. Get down! He didn't think. He just acted. He leaped onto the troll's back, his wand raised, and cast the first spell that came to mind. Wingardium Leviosa! The club flew out of the troll's hand, soared through the air, and landed on its head with a sickening thud. The troll crumpled to the ground, unconscious. Harry scrambled off the troll's back, his heart pounding. He rushed to Hermione's side, his hands shaking as he helped her to her feet. Are you okay? He asked, his voice trembling. Are you hurt? Hermione shook her head, her eyes wide with shock. I'm fine. Harry, how did you? I don't know, Harry said. I heard you. I knew you were in trouble. Hermione stared at him, her expression shifting from fear to wonder. I felt it too. When you jumped on the troll, I felt your courage, your determination. It was like we were connected. Harry's heart raced. The bond. It was getting stronger, more tangible. They were becoming linked in ways they didn't fully understand. We should get you to the hospital wing, Harry said, his voice shaking. You might be hurt. I'm not hurt, Hermione insisted. I'm just grateful. You saved my life, Harry. Harry felt his cheeks flush. You would have done the same for me. Hermione smiled, and the warmth of it spread through Harry's chest like sunlight. Maybe. But you did it first. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of Professors McGonagall and Snape, who were less than impressed with their heroics. But as Harry and Hermione were escorted to the hospital wing for a check-up, Harry felt a sense of peace settle over him. The bond was real. It was powerful. And it was making them stronger. As the weeks passed, Harry and Hermione began to notice more and more signs of their magical synchronization. In Charms class, their spells were more powerful when they cast them together, the magic flowing between them like water through a channel. In Potions, they worked in perfect harmony, their movements mirroring each other with an almost supernatural grace. Even their study sessions were more productive, their minds working in tandem to solve problems and uncover secrets. It was Hermione who first noticed the deeper implications. Harry, she said one evening in the common room, her voice thoughtful. I've been doing some research on magical bonds. And I think I've figured out what's happening to us. Harry looked up from his homework, his interest piqued. What is it? Hermione pulled out a thick, leather-bound book and opened it to a marked page. Ancient texts describe a phenomenon called anima connectum, the binding of souls. It's a rare and powerful form of magic that occurs when two people are destined to be together. It creates a mental, an emotional link that grows stronger over time, allowing them to share thoughts, feelings, and even magical abilities. Harry's eyes widened. So we're soulmates? Hermione's cheeks flushed. I don't know if I'd use that word. The bond is a result of the contract, not the other way around. But it's real, Harry. And it's getting stronger every day. Harry felt a surge of emotion, fear, excitement, hope, all mixed together in a confusing jumble. He didn't know what this bond meant for their future. He didn't know if they were meant to be together, or if the contract was just a magical accident that had gone horribly wrong. But he didn't know that he couldn't imagine his life without Hermione in it. What do we do? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hermione reached out and took his hand. We trust each other, she said. We protect each other. And we see where this bond takes us. Harry nodded, his heart swelling with emotion. Together? Together, Hermione agreed. The bond continued to deepen in the weeks before Christmas. Harry and Hermione found themselves finishing each other's sentences, anticipating each other's needs, and sharing a connection that went beyond words. They could sense each other's emotions, joy, fear, frustration, love, and they responded to them without thinking. It was during one of their late-night study sessions that Harry learned the true extent of their connection. They were in the library, hunched over a book on advanced defensive magic, when Harry felt a sudden wave of anxiety wash over him. It wasn't his anxiety, it was Hermione's. He could feel her fear like a physical weight, pressing down on his chest. "Hermione," he said, his voice urgent. "What's wrong?" Hermione looked up, her eyes wide. "How did you know?" "I felt it," Harry said. "I felt your fear." "What's going on?" Hermione hesitated, then closed her book with a sigh. "It's my parents," she said. "I've been thinking about them, about what would happen if Voldemort found out about me, about us. They're muggles, Harry. They don't have any protection against the dark arts." Harry's heart ached. He knew exactly how she felt. He'd been thinking about his own parents, too, about the sacrifice they'd made to protect him, the love that had saved his life. "We'll protect them," Harry said firmly. "I promise, Hermione. Whatever it takes, we'll keep them safe." Hermione's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You mean that?" "I mean it," Harry said. "You're my betrothed, Hermione. Your family is my family. And I'll do whatever it takes to keep them safe." Hermione reached out and took his hand, her fingers intertwining with his. "Thank you, Harry. For everything." Harry squeezed her hand, and for a moment the world seemed to stand still. They were just two children, bound together by ancient magic and impossible circumstances. But in that moment, they felt invincible. The Christmas holidays brought a new challenge, navigating the bond while apart. Harry had spent the holidays at Hogwarts, determined to use the time to study and prepare for the challenges ahead. Hermione had gone home to her parents, leaving Harry feeling strangely empty and incomplete. It was the first time they'd been separated since the bond had formed, and Harry was surprised by how much he missed her. He missed her laugh, her intelligence, her unwavering support. He missed the warmth of her presence, the feeling of her magic intertwined with his. But even apart, the bond remained strong. Harry could sense Hermione's emotions across the miles, her joy at being home, her frustration with her parents' well-meaning questions, her determination to return to Hogwarts as soon as possible. And one night, just after Christmas, Harry had a dream. He was in a strange place, a dark, cavernous room filled with water. The water was black, almost oily, and it seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. In the center of the room, on a small island of rock, sat a pedestal. And on the pedestal was a locket. Harry knew it instantly. It was the locket Regulus had stolen, the Horcrux. He approached the pedestal, his heart pounding. But before he could touch the locket, a figure appeared in the shadows, a young man with dark hair and gray eyes, his expression filled with pain and desperation. "Regulus." "Harry," Regulus said, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. "You found it. The locket." "It's a Horcrux," Harry said. "I know. I have to destroy it." Regulus nodded. "But you're not strong enough yet. The locket is protected by powerful magic, magic that could kill you if you're not careful. You need to wait. You need to grow stronger." Harry's heart sank. "But I have to." "I know," Regulus said. "I know you want to finish what I started. But you're not ready, Harry. Not yet." Harry opened his mouth to protest, but the dream faded, and he woke up with a gasp. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding. The locket was still in his trunk, still pulsing with dark magic. And Harry knew, with a sinking certainty, that Regulus was right. He wasn't ready. But he would be. He would grow stronger, learn the magic he needed, and destroy the Horcrux once and for all. For Regulus. For his parents. For everyone who had sacrificed everything to keep him safe. When Hermione returned to Hogwarts after the holidays, Harry could see the change in her immediately. She was more confident, more determined. There was a fire in her eyes that hadn't been there before, a sense of purpose that seemed to radiate from her very being. "The bond helped me," she said, when Harry asked about it. "I spent the holidays thinking about everything, the contract, our mission, the challenges ahead. And I realized that I'm not just along for the ride, Harry. I'm your partner. Your equal. And I'm going to fight just as hard as you do." Harry felt a surge of pride. "I never doubted that, Hermione. You're the bravest person I know." Hermione's cheeks flushed. "I'm not brave. I'm just determined." "That's the same thing," Harry said. "Trust me. I know." They spent the next few hours in the library, researching ancient magic and the nature of their bond. And as they worked together, Harry felt the connection between them grow stronger, deeper, more powerful. They were becoming something more than friends. More than betrothed. They were becoming two halves of a single whole, bound together by destiny and choice. The first real test of their bond came during the midwinter frost. Harry had been practicing defensive spells in an empty classroom when he felt a sudden, sharp pain in his chest. It was Hermione's pain, he knew it instantly, and it was followed by a wave of fear that made his blood run cold. "Hermione," he thought desperately, reaching out through the bond. "What's happening?" "I don't know," Hermione's voice responded, weak and trembling. "I'm in the dungeons. Something's wrong, there's a spell, Harry didn't wait. He ran out of the classroom, his heart pounding, following the thread of the bond through the labyrinthine corridors of the castle. He didn't stop to think, didn't question where he was going, he just ran. He found Hermione in a darkened corridor, cornered by a group of older Slytherin students. Their wands were raised, and one of them, a tall, weasel-faced boy named Marcus Flint, was laughing cruelly as he advanced on Hermione. "Little mudblood," Flint sneered. "Think you can compete with real wizards? Let's see how long you last without your precious Potter to protect you." Harry's vision went red. He didn't think, he just acted. "Stupefy!" he shouted, and a jet of red light shot from his wand, hitting Flint square in the chest. The Slytherin crumpled to the ground, unconscious. The other Slytherins turned to face Harry, their expressions shifting from amusement to anger. But Harry was faster. He cast spell after spell, moving with a speed and precision that surprised even himself. It was the bond, he realized. Hermione's magic was flowing through him, enhancing his own, making him stronger and more powerful than he'd ever been. "Harry!" Hermione shouted, and Harry turned to see her rise to her feet, her wand raised. Together, they cast a powerful shield charm that sent the remaining Slytherins flying backward. The corridor fell silent. Harry and Hermione stood side by side, their wands raised, their breathing ragged. "Are you okay?" Harry asked, his voice shaking. Hermione nodded, her eyes shining with tears. "I'm fine. Thanks to you." Harry felt a surge of relief. He reached out and took her hand, his fingers intertwining with hers. "We have to be more careful," he said. "Voldemort's followers are everywhere. They'll target you because you're close to me." "I know," Hermione said. "But I'm not afraid. Not as long as I have you." Harry squeezed her hand, and for a moment, the darkness faded away. They were stronger together. They were unstoppable together. And nothing, not even Voldemort himself, could tear them apart. As the school year progressed, Harry and Hermione's bond continued to grow stronger. They discovered new aspects of their connection, the ability to share memories, to communicate telepathically, to sense each other's emotions across vast distances. They practiced their magic together, their spells intertwining and amplifying each other's power. And they began to realize that the bond was more than just a magical contract. It was a gift. A blessing. A chance to find love and companionship in a world that was often dark and cruel. One evening, as they sat together in the common room, Hermione turned to Harry with a serious expression. "Harry, I've been thinking about the future," she said. About what happens after we defeat Voldemort. Harry's heart ached at the thought. I don't know, he admitted. I've never really thought about it. I've always just focused on surviving. Hermione smiled, a soft, sad smile. I know. But I want you to know that whatever happens, I'll be there. I'll always be there. Harry reached out and took her hand. I know, Hermione. And I'll always be there for you, too. They sat in comfortable silence, their hands intertwined, their hearts beating in sync. The bond didn't force love. It didn't force commitment. It simply allowed them to be open to it. To embrace the connection that had been forged by destiny and choice. And as Harry looked into Hermione's eyes, he knew, with a certainty that went beyond words, that he loved her. Not because of the bond. Not because of the contract. But because she was Hermione. And she was everything he'd ever wanted. The end of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, Grimmauld Place Awakens. The first time Harry saw number 12, Grimmauld Place, he felt like he was walking into a nightmare. The house appeared out of nowhere, squeezing itself between two ordinary Muggle buildings like a secret that had been waiting to be discovered. It was tall and narrow, its black bricks streaked with grime, its windows dark and forbidding. The door was covered in chipped black paint, and the silver knocker was shaped like a serpent, its eyes gleaming with malicious intelligence. This is it, Hermione said, her voice barely above a whisper. This is where Regulus lived. Harry nodded, his throat tight. He'd known about Grimmauld Place from Regulus's journals, the ancestral home of the Black family, the place where Regulus had grown up, the place where he'd made his final stand against the darkness. But knowing about it and seeing it were two very different things. The house seemed to pulse with a dark, ancient magic. Harry could feel it in his bones, a weight that pressed down on him like a physical presence. It was the magic of the Black family, the legacy of centuries of power and madness and sacrifice. And now it was his. Are you ready? Hermione asked, her hand finding his. Harry took a deep breath. Ready as I'll ever be. He raised his hand and knocked on the door. The door swung open before Harry could lower his hand, revealing a cavernous hallway that stretched into darkness. The air was thick with dust and the smell of old magic, something ancient and powerful, something that had been waiting for him. Harry stepped inside, Hermione close behind him, and the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening roar. Hello? Harry called out, his voice echoing in the silence. Is anyone there? For a long moment, nothing happened. And then the house began to wake up. The lights flickered on, one by one, revealing a hallway that was both magnificent and decaying. The walls were covered in peeling wallpaper and faded portraits, the floor creaked beneath their feet, and the air grew thick with the scent of old magic and forgotten secrets. And then Harry heard it, a voice, whispering from somewhere deep within the house. Asterisk. Harry Potter. Heir of Black. Welcome home. Asterisk. Harry's heart raced. Who's there? The voice didn't answer. Instead, the house seemed to come alive around them. The portraits began to stir, the shadows danced in the corners, and the floor beneath their feet began to hum with power. I think the house recognizes you, Hermione said, her voice filled with wonder. I think it's responding to the bond. Harry reached out and touched the wall, and the moment his fingers brushed the peeling wallpaper, he felt a surge of magic rush through him. It was like being struck by lightning, a burst of power that filled every corner of his being, connecting him to the house in ways he couldn't begin to understand. The house was alive. And it was welcoming him home. The interior of Grimmauld Place was even more overwhelming than the exterior. Harry and Hermione walked through the hallway, their footsteps echoing on the creaking floorboards. The walls were lined with portraits of Black family ancestors, stern-faced witches and wizards who glared down at them with expressions of barely concealed contempt. But as Harry passed, their expressions shifted. The contempt faded, replaced by something that looked almost like respect. The blood recognizes its own, Hermione murmured. They know you're the heir. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't want to be recognized by these people, these pure-blood fanatics who had made Regulus's life a living hell. But he knew that he had to accept their acknowledgement if he was going to claim the house. And claim the house he did. The main drawing room was a disaster. Dust covered every surface, and the furniture was covered in white sheets that looked like ghostly figures in the dim light. The fireplace was cold and empty, and the portraits on the walls were shrouded in shadows. But as Harry stepped into the room, something changed. The lights flickered on, casting a warm golden glow over the space. The dust seemed to retreat, and the sheets lifted from the furniture, revealing pieces that were elegant and timeless. The fireplace burst into flames, and the portraits came to life, their painted eyes following Harry's every move. "Welcome, Heir of Black," a portrait said, a stern-looking woman with dark hair and a sharp chin. Asterisk. "We have been waiting for you." Asterisk. Harry recognized her instantly. It was Walburga Black, Regulus's mother. Her portrait hung in a place of honor above the mantelpiece, and her eyes burned with a fierce intensity that made Harry's blood run cold. "I'm not here to honor your legacy," Harry said, his voice steady despite his fear. "I'm here to restore it. To make it something better." Walburga's portrait stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Regulus was right about you," she said. "You have his courage. His determination. Perhaps you can do what he could not." Harry felt a surge of emotion. "I'll try. I promise." The portrait nodded again, and then fell silent, her painted eyes watching him with an expression that was both proud and sad. The house had more secrets than Harry had ever imagined. In the days that followed, Harry and Hermione explored Grimmauld Place from top to bottom, discovering hidden rooms, forgotten libraries, and enchanted guardians that had been sleeping for decades. The library was the most incredible discovery. It was a vast, circular room filled with bookshelves that stretched from floor to ceiling, each one crammed with ancient tomes and scrolls. The books were written in languages Harry had never seen before, and they hummed with a magic that was both ancient and powerful. "This is incredible," Hermione breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "These books, they contain knowledge that hasn't been seen in centuries. Harry, this is everything we need." Harry nodded, his heart pounding. "Regulus left them for us. He wanted us to find them." But the library wasn't the only secret the house held. In the deepest part of the house, hidden behind a portrait of a stern-faced wizard, Harry discovered a small, circular room. The walls were covered in intricate runes, and the floor was made of black marble that seemed to absorb all light. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on the pedestal was a small, silver locket. Harry approached it with trembling hands, his heart pounding. He knew what it was before he even touched it. It was another Horcrux, another piece of Voldemort's shattered soul. "Harry, be careful," Hermione warned. "It might be cursed." Harry nodded, his eyes fixed on the locket. He reached out with shaking fingers, and the moment he touched it, a wave of darkness washed over him. He saw Regulus, young, desperate, afraid. He saw the cave, the potion, the inferi. He saw Regulus's final moments, his sacrifice, his hope that someone would finish what he had started. And then he saw Voldemort, a shadowy figure with red eyes and a voice like ice. He saw the Dark Lord's anger, his rage at the betrayal, his determination to destroy the one who had stolen his Horcrux. "You," Voldemort's voice echoed in Harry's mind. Asterisk. "You are the one who will destroy me. But I will not let you. I will never let you." Asterisk. Harry yanked his hand back, his heart pounding. The locket was cold in his palm, pulsing with dark magic that made his skin crawl. "We have to destroy it," he said. "We have to destroy it now." But even as he said the words, Harry knew it wasn't going to be easy. The locket was protected by powerful magic, and destroying it would require more than just a simple spell. They needed help. And they needed to find the other Horcruxes, too. The house was full of guardians, Harry soon discovered. Some were friendly, like the house elf creature, who emerged from the shadows of the kitchen with a wild look in his eyes and a mutter about the master's heir. Others were hostile, like the enchanted suits of armor that patrolled the corridors at night, attacking anyone who didn't know the proper passwords. But the most powerful guardian was the house itself. Grimmauld Place had been enchanted centuries ago to protect its inhabitants from enemies. It could sense danger, lock doors, and even create protective barriers around the building. And now that Harry had claimed the house, it was bending its will to protect him. "The house recognizes you as its master," Creature said one evening, his voice a low, rasping whisper. "It will do as you command." Harry looked around the kitchen, his eyes taking in the gleaming surfaces and the warm fire in the hearth. The house was beginning to heal, to shake off the years of neglect and decay. And Harry was beginning to feel like he belonged. The restoration of Grimmauld Place was a slow, painstaking process. Harry and Hermione spent hours cleaning, scrubbing, and repairing the damage that years of neglect had caused. They enlisted the help of Creature and the other house elves, who worked tirelessly to restore the mansion to its former glory. But it wasn't just about cleaning. It was about reclaiming the house, making it their own. Harry found Regulus's old bedroom on the second floor, a small, Spartan room that had been stripped of all personal belongings. There was a faded photograph on the bedside table, showing a young Regulus with his brother Sirius, their arms slung around each other's shoulders. Harry picked up the photograph and studied it. The two brothers looked so happy, so carefree. They were smiling like they didn't have a care in the world, like the darkness that would later tear them apart was still far away. He tucked the photograph into his pocket, vowing to find a way to reunite Regulus's memory with his brother's. "Harry, come look at this!" Hermione's voice echoed from the study downstairs, and Harry hurried to join her. She was standing in front of a large, ornate mirror, its surface rippling like water. As Harry approached, the mirror showed him an image of Regulus, older, wearier, but still fiercely determined. "I think this is his pensieve," Hermione said. "It's a way of storing memories. Regulus must have left something for you." Harry nodded, his heart pounding. He reached out and touched the mirror, and the image of Regulus began to speak. "Harry," Regulus's voice said, echoing from the depths of the mirror. "If you are seeing this, then you have found Grimmauld Place. You have claimed the house as your own. And you have begun the journey I set for you." The image shifted, showing Regulus standing in the study, his face lined with exhaustion and pain. "I have left you everything you need to complete the mission," Regulus continued. The house holds clues to the locations of the Horcruxes. The library holds the knowledge you need to destroy them. And the guardians of the house will protect you as long as you remain its master. The image paused, and Regulus's expression grew sad. "I know you are afraid, Harry. I know this burden is too heavy for someone so young. But I also know that you are strong. You are brave. And you are the only one who can finish what I started." The image faded, and Harry was left staring at his own reflection in the mirror. He had the house. He had the knowledge. He had the guardians. And he had Hermione, standing beside him, her hand on his shoulder. Together, they could do this. Together, they could fulfill Regulus's dream. The final secret of Grimmauld Place was revealed on the night of the full moon. Harry had been exploring the attic, searching for anything that might lead him to the next Horcrux, when he found a small, dusty chest hidden behind a portrait of a dragon. The chest was locked, but the moment Harry touched it, the lock sprang open. Inside was a collection of letters written by Regulus, addressed to someone Harry had never heard of. A woman named Elara. Harry opened the first letter and began to read. "My dearest Elara. I know I have no right to write to you. I know that I have done terrible things, unforgivable things. But I cannot stop thinking about you, about the light you brought into my life, the hope you gave me when I had nothing left. I want you to know that I am trying to change. I am trying to be the man you believed I could be. I know it may be too late for me, but I want to try. For you. for our future. Asterisk. Harry's heart ached as he read the letters. Regulus had loved this woman, Elara, with all his heart. And she had loved him back. But they could never be together. The darkness that consumed Regulus's life had made it impossible. Harry folded the letters carefully and tucked them into his pocket. He would keep them safe, keep Regulus's memory alive. And he would honor the love that Regulus had never been able to fully express. The house was finally restored, its dark past transformed into a future filled with hope. Harry stood in the main drawing room, looking around at the gleaming surfaces and the warm fire. The portraits on the walls had stopped glaring at him, and had started to nod with approval. Kreacher was bustling about, polishing the silver and muttering to himself. Hermione was reading in the corner, a book on ancient runes open in her lap. And Harry felt, for the first time, that he was home. "Grimmauld Place is ours," Hermione said, looking up from her book. "It's truly ours." Harry nodded, a smile spreading across his face. Regulus wanted it to be this way. He wanted the house to be restored, to be a home again. Hermione walked over to him and took his hand. "He would be proud of you, Harry. He would be so proud." Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest, not the warmth of the bond, but something deeper. A sense of belonging, of purpose. He had a home now. He had a family. And he had a mission. He would destroy Voldemort. He would restore the honor of House Black. And he would never forget the sacrifice of the man who had made it all possible. The end of Chapter 5. Chapter 6, Kreacher's True Master. The kitchen of Grimmauld Place had always been a place of shadows and whispered secrets. Harry had noticed it from the first moment he'd set foot in the house. The way the light seemed to pool in the corners, the way the pots and pans hung from the ceiling like silent sentinels, the way the air carried the faint scent of something old and forgotten. It was a room that had seen centuries of Black family history, and it seemed to remember every single moment. But tonight, the kitchen was different. Tonight, the candles burned brighter, casting a warm golden glow over the worn wooden table. The fire in the hearth crackled with renewed vigor, and the portraits on the walls, those that weren't still asleep, at least, watched with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Harry sat at the head of the table, his hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long gone cold. Hermione was beside him, her eyes fixed on the shadowy corner of the room where Kreacher lurked, his gnarled fingers twitching nervously. "Kreacher," Harry said, his voice gentle but firm. "I know this is difficult for you. I know you served the Black family for decades, and I know you were loyal to Regulus." Kreacher's eyes darted to Harry's face, then away. His voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "Kreacher served the noble house of Black. Kreacher served Master Regulus. Master Regulus was a good master, the best of them all. But Kreacher failed him." Harry's heart ached at the pain in the old elf's voice. He had read the journals, knew the full story of what Kreacher had endured. The potion, the infamy, the slow, agonizing death of the master he had loved above all others. "You didn't fail him," Harry said. "You did exactly what he asked. You drank the potion. You survived. You brought the locket back to him." Kreacher's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Kreacher could not save Master Regulus. Kreacher could not stop him from going into the cave. Kreacher. Kreacher." Harry's voice was firm, cutting through the elf's rambling. "Listen to me." Kreacher fell silent, his watery eyes fixed on Harry's face. Harry leaned forward, his elbows resting on the table. "I know you loved Regulus. I know you would have given your life for him. But he made a choice, a brave, selfless choice, to sacrifice himself for a greater cause. You honored his memory by surviving. You honored his memory by bringing the locket to me." Kreacher's lower lip trembled. "The young master speaks kindly. But Kreacher knows the truth. Kreacher is a bad elf. A useless elf. You are not a bad elf," Harry interrupted, his voice rising with conviction. "You are the most loyal elf I have ever met. And I am not going to let you wallow in guilt and self-pity. Creature blinked, clearly taken aback by Harry's intensity. Harry took a deep breath and continued. Regulus left you instructions, didn't he? He told you what to do when his heir arrived. Creature's eyes widened. Master Regulus, Master. Regulus told Creature to wait. To protect the house. To serve the true heir when he came. And I'm here, Harry said. I'm the true heir. And I'm telling you that you are not useless. You are not a bad elf. You are a hero, Creature. You helped destroy a Horcrux. You helped save the world. Creature stared at Harry for a long moment, his expression unreadable. And then, slowly, the old elf began to weep. The transformation of Creature was slow but profound. In the weeks that followed, Harry made a conscious effort to treat the old elf with kindness and respect. He included Creature in household decisions, asked for his advice on matters of Black family tradition, and made sure the elf knew that he was valued and appreciated. At first, Creature was wary. He'd been treated poorly for so long, first by Walburga, then by Sirius, that he didn't know how to respond to kindness. But gradually, the walls around his heart began to crumble. Master Harry is a good master, Creature said one evening, his voice gruff with embarrassment. Creature has not known such kindness in many years. Harry smiled. You deserve it, Creature. You deserve to be happy. Creature's eyes glistened, but he didn't cry. Instead, he straightened his back and puffed out his chest. Creature will serve Master Harry well, he declared. Creature will teach Master Harry the ways of the Black family. Creature will help Master Harry fulfill Master Regulus's dream. And he did. The lessons began the very next day. Creature led Harry and Hermione to a hidden room in the basement of Grimmauld Place, a room that Harry had never noticed before. It was small and circular, its walls covered in ancient runes that glowed with a faint, silvery light. This is the chamber of the family, Creature said, his voice hushed with reverence. It is where the Black family passed down their most sacred traditions. Only the true heir can enter. Harry stepped inside, Hermione close behind him, and the moment his foot touched the floor, the runes flared to life. They pulsed with a rhythm that seemed to match his heartbeat, and Harry felt a surge of power rush through him. This is incredible, Hermione breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. These runes, they're ancient. Older than anything I've ever seen. Creature nodded. The Black family has existed for centuries. Their magic is deep and powerful. Master Harry must learn to wield it if he is to fulfill his destiny. The lessons were intense. Creature taught Harry about the history of the Black family, the alliances, the betrayals, the secrets that had been kept for generations. He taught him about the ancient magic that bound the family together, the rituals that strengthened their power and protected their legacy. But most importantly, Creature taught Harry about the Horcruxes. Master Regulus spent years studying the Dark Lord's secrets, Creature said, his voice low and grave. He discovered the locations of many Horcruxes. He left clues for his heir, clues that are hidden throughout this house. Harry's heart raced. Where? Where are they? Creature shuffled over to a small, ornate cabinet in the corner of the room. He opened it with a creak, revealing a collection of objects that seemed to hum with dark magic. The locket was the first, Creature said. But there are others. Master Regulus left a ring, a diary, a cup, a diadem, and more. He did not know where all of them were hidden, but he left clues for the one who would follow him. Harry reached out to touch one of the objects, a small, golden ring, but Creature grabbed his hand. No, Master Harry! Creature hissed. The ring is cursed. You cannot touch it. Harry yanked his hand back, his heart pounding. What kind of curse? Creature's eyes were dark with fear. A curse of death. Master Regulus touched it only once, and it nearly killed him. It was only through the intervention of the Dark Lord. He spat the words. That Master Regulus survived. Harry's blood ran cold. So how do we destroy it? Creature shook his head. That is for Master Harry to discover. The knowledge is hidden in the library, in books that only the true heir can read. Harry nodded, his determination hardening. He would find the knowledge. He would destroy the Horcruxes. He would finish what Regulus had started. The lessons continued, and Harry's understanding of the Black family deepened. He learned about the blood magic that bound the family together, the ancient rituals that had been passed down through generations. He learned about the alliances with other pureblood families, the Malfoys, the Lestranges, the Knots, and the betrayals that had torn them apart. But he also learned about the good that the Black family had done, the charitable works, the patronage of the arts, the protection of magical creatures. The family had not always been defined by darkness, and Harry was determined to restore that legacy. One evening, after a particularly intense lesson, Harry sat in the drawing room with Hermione, his mind churning with everything he'd learned. "Preacher told me something interesting today," he said, his voice thoughtful. "He said there are other families who are waiting for House Black to return to its former glory. Families who want to ally themselves with the true heir." Hermione's eyes widened. "Which families?" Harry shrugged. "Preacher wouldn't say. He said it's something I have to discover on my own. But he did mention that there are neutral pureblood families who are dissatisfied with Voldemort's leadership. Families who are looking for an alternative." Hermione leaned forward, her expression intense. "If we could ally with them, if we could build a network of support, it would give us an edge," Harry finished. "Resources? Information? Allies in the fight against Voldemort?" Hermione nodded, her mind clearly racing. "But how do we find them? How do we know who to trust?" Harry smiled. "We start with the house. Creature said there are records in the library, records of all the alliances and treaties the Black family ever made. If we can find them, we can identify the families who are still loyal to the Black name." Hermione's eyes lit up. "Then let's get started." The search of the library took days. Harry and Hermione spent every spare moment poring over ancient documents, cross-referencing names and dates, piecing together the complex web of alliances that the Black family had built over the centuries. It was tedious work, but it was also fascinating. They discovered that the Black family had once been the heart of the pureblood community, the nexus through which all power flowed. They had brokered marriages, negotiated treaties, and mediated disputes between families. They had been the glue that held the magical world together. But they had also been corrupt, arrogant, and cruel. They had used their power to oppress and control, to enforce their vision of blood purity on the rest of the wizarding world. Regulus had wanted to change that. He had wanted to restore the family's honor, to turn the Black legacy into something good. And now Harry was carrying that torch. "We can't just focus on the past," Harry said one evening, his voice tired but determined. "We have to look to the future. We have to build something new." Hermione nodded. "And we will. But we need to understand the past first. We need to learn from the mistakes of those who came before us." Harry looked at her, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I'm glad I have you, Hermione. I don't think I could do this alone." Hermione smiled. "You don't have to. We're in this together." The final lesson from Creature was the most important. It came on the night of the new moon, when the darkness outside the windows was absolute. Creature led Harry to the roof of Grimmauld Place, where the stars blazed like diamonds in the sky. "The Black family has always been connected to the stars," Creature said, his voice soft and reverent. "Our ancestors believed that the stars guided our fate, that they held the keys to our destiny." Harry looked up at the sky, feeling a sense of awe wash over him. The stars seemed to pulse with a life of their own, their light reaching down to touch him like the fingers of a long-forgotten ancestor. "The Black family crest, it has a star at its center," Harry observed. "I've always wondered about that." Creature nodded. "The star represents Regulus, the brightest star in the constellation of Leo. It is a symbol of hope, of guidance, of the light that guides us through the darkness." Harry's throat tightened. Regulus had been named after a star that represented hope and guidance. He had lived up to that name. Master Regulus believed that you would be the one to carry on his legacy, Creature said. He believed that you would be the one to restore the Black family name. And now. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. Now Creature believes it too. Harry knelt down so that he was eye level with the old elf. Creature, I want you to know something. I'm not just doing this for Regulus. I'm doing it for you too. And for everyone who's suffered because of the darkness. Creature's eyes glistened. Master Harry is kind. Master Harry is good. Creature will serve Master Harry until the end of his days. Harry reached out and placed a hand on Creature's shoulder. Thank you, Creature. For everything. The old elf bowed his head, his gnarled fingers clasped together. And together they watched the stars, the legacy of a family that had been born in darkness and was destined to find the light. The restoration of Grimmauld Place continued apace. With Creature's help, Harry and Hermione uncovered more secrets, hidden rooms, enchanted objects, and ancient texts that would have been the envy of any scholar. The house was beginning to feel like a home, a place of warmth and safety. But Harry knew that the work was far from over. Voldemort was still out there, growing stronger every day. The Horcruxes were still hidden, waiting to be destroyed. And the Black family legacy was still stained by centuries of blood purity and corruption. Harry was determined to change all of that. The house is ready, he said one evening, looking around the newly restored drawing room. Now we need to build the alliances. We need to reach out to the families who are willing to stand with us. Hermione nodded. I've been researching the records Creature gave us. There are several families who might be sympathetic. The Longbottoms, the Bones, the Weasleys. They're not pureblood fanatics, but they have the connections and resources we need. Harry smiled. Then we start with them. One family at a time. Hermione reached out and took his hand. Together. Harry squeezed her hand, his heart swelling with love and determination. Yes. Together. The end of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. The Noble House Reborn. The first snow of winter fell over Grimmauld Place like a blessing. Harry stood at the window of the drawing room, watching the white flakes drift down from a gray, heavy sky. The house felt different now, warmer, more alive. The portraits had stopped their incessant muttering, the floorboards had ceased their ominous creaking, and even the dust seemed to have retreated to the corners, as though acknowledging that this was no longer a place of decay. It was a place of rebirth. Master Harry, Creature said, appearing at his elbow with a tray of steaming tea. The preparations are complete. The house is ready for your guests. Harry turned from the window, a knot of nervous excitement tightening in his stomach. Today was the day he'd been working toward for months, the day he would begin to rebuild the alliances of House Black. Thank you, Creature, he said, accepting the cup of tea. Is Hermione ready? Creature's wrinkled face split into something that might have been a smile. Mistress Hermione has been ready for hours, Master Harry. She is in the library, reviewing the documents one final time. Harry smiled despite his nerves. Of course she was. Hermione was nothing if not thorough. He took a sip of the tea, letting the warmth spread through him. Today, he would prove to the wizarding world that House Black was not dead. That it had risen from the ashes of its dark past, reborn under new leadership. Today, he would become the lord his family had always needed him to be. The guests began to arrive at noon. Harry had sent out invitations to a select group of families, those who had been identified in the Black family records as potential allies. They were not the pure-blood fanatics who had once flocked to the Dark Lord's banner. They were neutral families, families who had stayed out of the war, families who had watched the rise and fall of Voldemort with growing unease. They were families who were looking for an alternative. The first to arrive was Augusta Longbottom, a formidable woman with a stern face and a vulture-topped hat. She was accompanied by her grandson, Neville, who looked around the entrance hall with a mixture of awe and nervousness. Mr. Potter, Augusta said, extending her hand. I must say, I was surprised to receive your invitation. The Black family has not been known for its hospitality in recent years. Harry shook her hand firmly. I'm hoping to change that, Madam Longbottom. Please come in. Make yourself at home. Augusta's eyes swept over the restored entrance hall, taking in the gleaming fixtures and the freshly polished portraits. Her expression remained neutral, but Harry caught a flicker of approval in her eyes. You've done well with the old place, she said. It looks almost respectable. Harry smiled. That's the goal. Neville stepped forward, his face flushed with embarrassment. Hello, Harry. I didn't know you were. I knew you were the heir to House Black, but I didn't realize. It's a long story, Harry said, clapping him on the shoulder. I'll explain everything later. For now, let's just say I'm trying to make the family name mean something good again. Neville nodded, his expression brightening. That's brilliant, Harry. Really brilliant. More guests arrived throughout the afternoon. The Bones family came, Amelia Bones, the head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and her niece Susan. The Weasleys came, Arthur and Molly, along with several of their children, including Ron, who looked around the house with wide-eyed wonder. This is where you live? Ron asked, his voice filled with awe. This is incredible, Harry. Harry laughed. It's a work in progress. But it's starting to feel like home. Ron's eyes lit up. Can I see the rest of it? Fred and George are already exploring the attic. Mum's going to have a fit when she finds out. Harry grinned. Come on. I'll give you the tour. The tour of Grimmauld Place was a revelation for Ron. Harry showed him the library, the drawing room, the hidden chambers that Creature had helped him discover. He told Ron about Regulus, about the Horcrux, about the mission he'd been given. And Ron listened with growing awe. So you're actually trying to destroy Voldemort? Ron asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You're trying to finish what Regulus started. Harry nodded. That's the plan. It's going to take time, and it's going to be dangerous. But I think we can do it. Ron's expression was conflicted. And Hermione? She's part of this too? Harry's heart ached. She's my partner, Ron. In every way that matters. Ron was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Good, he said. She deserves someone who sees her for who she really is. Someone who... He paused, his cheeks flushing. Someone who loves her. Harry felt a surge of gratitude. Thanks, Ron. That means a lot. Ron clapped him on the shoulder. Just don't make me regret saying that. And if you ever hurt her, I won't, Harry said firmly. I promise. The gathering in the drawing room was a success. Harry stood in front of the fireplace, addressing the assembled families with a confidence that surprised even himself. He spoke about the history of House Black, the mistakes that had been made, and the future he wanted to build. He spoke about the threat of Voldemort, the danger he posed to all of them, and the need for unity in the face of darkness. I know the Black family has a dark history, Harry said, his voice steady. I know we have done terrible things. I'm not here to defend that legacy. I'm here to change it. He paused, letting his words sink in. Regulus Black gave his life to fight Voldemort. He sacrificed everything to destroy a Horcrux, a piece of the Dark Lord's soul. He believed that House Black could be redeemed. He believed that someone could carry on his work and restore the family name. Harry's eyes swept over the assembled guests. I want to be that someone. I want to fulfill Regulus's dream. And I'm asking for your help, not as servants of House Black, but as allies in the fight against the darkness. For a long moment, the room was silent. Then Amelia Bones rose to her feet, her expression unreadable. You're asking a lot, Mr. Potter. You're asking us to trust a Black, even a Black who bears the Potter name. That's not something we can do lightly. Harry met her gaze. I know. But I'm not asking for blind trust. I'm asking for a chance. A chance to prove that I'm different. That House Black can be different. Amelia studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. You've got your chance, Mr. Potter. Don't waste it. Harry felt a surge of relief. I won't. I promise. The alliance was formed in that moment. Over the following weeks, Harry worked tirelessly to solidify the relationships he'd built. He met with the various families individually, discussing their concerns and their hopes for the future. He shared information about Voldemort's activities and the locations of the Horcruxes, building trust through transparency and honesty. And slowly, the House of Black began to rise. The neutral families who had once distanced themselves from the Black name now flocked to Harry's banner. They saw his determination, his courage, and his commitment to justice. They saw the house that had been transformed from a place of darkness to a beacon of hope. And they wanted to be part of it. "You're doing it, Harry," Hermione said one evening, her eyes shining with pride. "You're really doing it. The House of Black is reborn." Harry smiled, but his expression was thoughtful. "It's not just about me. It's about all of us. All the people who are willing to stand up and fight." Hermione reached out and took his hand. "And they will? Because you've given them something to believe in." Harry squeezed her hand, his heart full. "I couldn't have done it without you, Hermione. You've been my rock through all of this." Hermione's cheeks flushed. "We're partners, Harry. That's what we do." Harry leaned in and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I love you," he said softly. "I know we're young, and I know this is all happening so fast, but I love you." Hermione's eyes glistened with tears. "I love you too, Harry. Always." The restoration of House Black was not just about politics and alliances, it was about family. Harry had been an orphan for as long as he could remember. He'd grown up unloved and unwanted, convinced that he was a burden on the world. But now, standing in the heart of Grimmauld Place, surrounded by people who believed in him and loved him, he felt like he finally belonged. The Weasleys became like a second family to him. Molly fussed over him, fed him, and insisted that he come to the Burrow for Christmas. Arthur showed him the wonders of Muggle artifacts, much to Hermione's amusement. And Ron became his best friend, a brother in all but blood. Neville, too, became a close friend. They bonded over their shared grief, Neville for his parents, Harry for his parents and for Regulus. They trained together, studied together, and grew stronger together. And then there was Kreacher. The old elf had been transformed by Harry's kindness. He was no longer the bitter, resentful creature who had muttered about the new masters. He was a devoted servant, fiercely loyal to Harry and Hermione, determined to see the family restored to its former glory. "Master Harry is the best master," Kreacher declared one evening, as he prepared dinner. "Master Harry has given Kreacher hope. Master Harry has given Kreacher a reason to live." Harry smiled. "You've given me a reason to live too, Kreacher. You've shown me what it means to be part of a family." Kreacher's eyes glistened. "Kreacher will serve Master Harry until the end of his days." And Harry knew that he meant it. The final challenge came in the form of the Malfoy family. Lucius Malfoy had been a prominent Death Eater, a close ally of Voldemort. But in the years since the Dark Lord's fall, he had distanced himself from the cause, building a reputation as a respectable member of the wizarding community. He had wealth, influence, and connections that could be invaluable to Harry's cause. But he was also dangerous. He was a man who had betrayed his friends, his family, and his own principles for the sake of power. Harry knew that he couldn't trust Malfoy, not fully. And yet, when the invitation arrived, Harry knew he had to accept it. "You're going to meet with him?" Hermione asked, her voice filled with concern. "Harry, he's a Death Eater. He's dangerous." Harry nodded. "I know. But he's also powerful. If I can convince him to ally with us, if I can show him that Voldemort is going to lose. Or he could betray you," Hermione said. "He could hand you over to Voldemort in exchange for his own safety." Harry met her gaze. "I know. But I have to try." The meeting with Lucius Malfoy took place in a neutral location, a private room at the Leaky Cauldron, warded against eavesdropping and intrusion. Harry arrived with Hermione at his side, their wands ready. Malfoy was already there, seated at a table with a glass of wine in his hand. His expression was cool and unreadable. "Mr. Potter," Malfoy said, rising to his feet. "And Miss Granger. What a pleasure." Harry didn't return the smile. "Let's cut to the chase, Malfoy. I know you were a Death Eater. I know you served Voldemort. But I also know you've distanced yourself from him in recent years." Malfoy's expression flickered. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Yes, you do," Harry said. "And I'm giving you a choice. You can continue to serve the Dark Lord, and watch him destroy everything you've built. Or you can join us, and help us destroy him." Malfoy's eyes narrowed. "You're asking me to betray the Dark Lord. That is a death sentence." Harry met his gaze. "I'm asking you to choose the winning side. Voldemort is going to fall, Malfoy. It's just a matter of time. The question is, do you want to be on the side that survives?" Malfoy was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "You have your father's nerve, Potter. And your mother's charm. I'll give you that much." Harry didn't waver. "What's your answer?" Malfoy leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I will consider your offer, Mr. Potter. But I make no promises." Harry nodded. "That's all I ask?" The meeting ended without a concrete commitment, but Harry felt a sense of victory nonetheless. He had planted a seed in Malfoy's mind, a seed that would grow into doubt, and then into fear, and then into action. He had shown Malfoy that there was an alternative to the darkness, a path to redemption. And that was enough. "You did well in there," Hermione said, as they walked back to Grimmauld Place. "You handled him perfectly." Harry shrugged. "I just told him the truth. Voldemort is going to lose. It's just a matter of time." Hermione smiled. "You really believe that, don't you?" Harry met her gaze. "I have to believe it. Because if I don't, if I let the fear win, then everything Regulus died for was for nothing." Hermione reached out and took his hand. "Then we'll make sure it wasn't for nothing. Together." Harry squeezed her hand, feeling the warmth of her presence wash over him. "Together. Always." The noble House of Black was reborn. Not through blood purity or ancient magic, but through courage, sacrifice, and the determination to build something better. Harry had taken the legacy of a broken family and transformed it into something worthy of hope. And standing in the heart of Grimmauld Place, surrounded by the people he loved and the allies he had earned, Harry knew that he had fulfilled Regulus's dream. The house was no longer a place of darkness. It was a place of light. A place of hope. A place of family. The end of Chapter 7. Chapter 8, Hermione's Forgotten Heritage. The library at Grimmauld Place was Hermione's sanctuary. She had always loved books, the smell of old parchment, the weight of knowledge in her hands, the endless possibilities that lay between the pages. But this library was different. This library held secrets that had been buried for centuries, secrets that were waiting to be uncovered. And Hermione was determined to uncover them all. It had started with a simple question: why her? Why had the betrothal contract recognized her, a Muggle-born witch with no known magical lineage? Harry had assumed it was because of her intelligence, her potential, her brightness. But Hermione knew that magic didn't work that way. Magic was precise, deliberate, and deeply connected to blood and heritage. There had to be more to the story. And so, while Harry focused on rebuilding the alliances of House Black, Hermione buried herself in the Black family archives, searching for answers. The first clue came from a dusty old book that had been hidden behind a portrait of a sleeping dragon. It was a genealogical record, written in elegant script that had faded with age. The book traced the history of the Black family's alliances, including their marriages to other pure-blood families. But one entry caught Hermione's eye: a marriage between a Black ancestor and a witch named Elara Dagworth Granger. Dagworth Granger. The same name that had appeared in the betrothal contract. Hermione's heart raced as she read the entry. Elara Dagworth Granger had been a brilliant witch, a scholar of ancient magic who had married into the Black family in the early 18th century. She had been celebrated for her intelligence, her magical prowess, and her commitment to education. But there was more. The entry mentioned that Alara had a sister, a Muggle-born witch named Celeste, who had been disowned by her family for marrying a Muggle. Celeste had vanished from the historical records, her name erased from the family tree. Except it hadn't been erased completely. Hermione found a faint, almost invisible line connecting Celeste's name to a branch of the family that had been crossed out. The Granger branch. Hermione's hands trembled as she traced the line. She had found it, the connection between her family and the magical world. Her ancestors had been witches and wizards, brilliant and powerful, but they had chosen to hide their magic, to assimilate into the Muggle world to escape persecution. And now, centuries later, the magic had resurfaced in her. Hermione spent the next several days digging deeper into the Granger family history. She discovered that the Granger family had once been a prominent magical family, known for their scholarship and their commitment to justice. They had been allies of the Black family, friends and confidants who had shared their knowledge and their magic. But over time, the Granger family had fallen into obscurity. They had intermarried with Muggles, diluted their magical blood, and hidden their heritage to avoid the persecution that had swept through the wizarding world. By the time Hermione was born, the family's magical history had been all but forgotten. But the magic hadn't disappeared completely. It had simply slept, waiting for the right moment to awaken. And that moment had come when Hermione had been born. "I can't believe it," Hermione said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I thought I was Muggle-born. I thought I had no connection to this world. But my ancestors, they were witches and wizards. They were part of this world all along." Harry reached out and took her hand. "It doesn't change who you are, Hermione. You're still you. You're still the brightest, bravest, most brilliant witch I've ever met." Hermione smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I know. But it explains so much. Why the contract recognized me. Why the magic feels so familiar." Harry squeezed her hand. "We're connected, Hermione. Not just through the bond, but through our families. Our histories. Our destiny." Hermione nodded, her heart full. She had always felt like an outsider, a Muggle born in a world that didn't fully accept her. But now she knew the truth. She had a heritage, a legacy, a place in this world. She was the heir of Dagworth Granger, and she was proud of it. The discovery of Hermione's heritage was not just a personal revelation, it was a strategic advantage. The Dagworth Granger family had been scholars and diplomats, known for their extensive networks and their access to rare knowledge. Their archives, which had been hidden and forgotten for centuries, contained information that could be invaluable in the fight against Voldemort. But finding those archives was easier said than done. The Granger family had gone to great lengths to hide their magical heritage, and the location of their archives had been lost to time. "We need to find them," Harry said, his voice determined. "If the Dagworth Granger family had access to rare magical knowledge, if they had information about the Horcruxes." Hermione nodded. "I've been thinking the same thing. But the archives were hidden for a reason. It won't be easy to find them." Harry smiled. "Nothing about our lives has been easy. Why should this be any different?" Hermione laughed despite herself. "You're right. Let's get to work." The search for the Dagworth Granger archives took them to some of the most obscure corners of the magical world. They visited the Ministry of Magic, sifting through ancient records that had been forgotten for centuries. They traveled to the continent, meeting with scholars and historians who specialized in obscure magical families. They even consulted the portraits in Grimmauld Place, hoping that one of the Black ancestors might have known the Granger family. But it was Creature who finally provided the breakthrough. "Mistress Hermione is looking for the Dagworth Granger archives?" Creature asked, his voice thoughtful. Creature remembers something. Master Regulus spoke of them once. He said that the Granger family had hidden their archives in a place that only the true heir could find. Harry's heart raced. Where? Where did he say they were? Creature's brow furrowed. Creature does not remember exactly. But Creature remembers that Master Regulus mentioned a key that was passed down through the Granger family. Without the key, the archives could not be opened. Hermione's eyes widened. A key? What kind of key? Creature shrugged. Creature does not know. But Creature knows that the key was hidden in a place that only the true heir would think to look. The search for the key became Hermione's obsession. She scoured the Granger family home, looking for any clue that might lead her to the hidden artifact. She interrogated her parents, asking them about family heirlooms and forgotten possessions. She even consulted the old family Bible, which had been passed down through generations. And then, in the most unexpected of places, she found it. It was tucked inside a worn, leather-bound journal that had belonged to her great-grandmother, a woman who had always been described as eccentric. The journal was filled with poetry, recipes, and personal reflections, but one entry caught Hermione's attention. To my dearest descendant. Asterisk, if you are reading this, then you have discovered the truth about our family. You know that we are more than we seem, that we carry a legacy that has been hidden for centuries. I have left you a gift, a key that will unlock the knowledge of our ancestors. Asterisk. Asterisk, it is hidden in the place where our family began. The place where our magic was born. Asterisk. Find it, and you will find your true heritage. With love. Your great-grandmother, Elara Dagworth Granger. Hermione's hands trembled as she read the entry. The place where our family began. The place where our magic was born. It could only mean one thing. Hogwarts. The journey back to Hogwarts was filled with a sense of urgency. Harry and Hermione traveled together, their hands intertwined, their hearts beating in sync. They knew that the key was somewhere in the castle, hidden in a place that only the true heir of Dagworth Granger could find. But finding it would not be easy. The castle was vast, and it was filled with secrets that had been hidden for centuries. Hermione had to use every ounce of her intelligence, every scrap of her knowledge, to piece together the clues. The key is in the library, she said, her voice filled with certainty. Not the main library, the old library. The one that was sealed off in the 18th century. Harry's eyes widened. But that library is supposed to be inaccessible. No one has been able to enter it in centuries. Hermione smiled. No one except the true heir of Dagworth Granger. The old library was hidden behind a false wall in the restricted section. Hermione had known it was there, she had read about it in a book that had been written by one of her ancestors. But she had never been able to access it, because the entrance required a password that only the true heir would know. That password, she realized now, was the name of her great-grandmother, Elara. The wall shimmered and dissolved, revealing a narrow passageway that led into a vast, circular room. The walls were lined with bookshelves, and the floor was covered in ancient tapestries. In the center of the room, on a marble pedestal, sat a small, silver key. Hermione approached it with trembling hands. She reached out and picked it up, and the moment her fingers closed around it, she felt a surge of magic rush through her. It was the same feeling she had experienced when the bond with Harry had first formed, a sense of rightness, of belonging, of coming home. "This is it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is the key." Harry stepped forward, his eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Hermione. You actually did it." Hermione smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "We did it. Together." The archives of the Dagworth Granger family were everything Hermione had hoped for. They contained thousands of books, scrolls, and artifacts, each one filled with knowledge that had been lost to the wizarding world for centuries. There were spells that had been forgotten, potions that had been banned, and records of magical history that had been deliberately erased. But the most valuable find was a series of journals written by Elara Dagworth Granger herself. Elara had been a brilliant witch, a scholar of ancient magic who had dedicated her life to the study of Horcruxes. She had been one of the few people who understood the true nature of Voldemort's magic, and she had left detailed instructions on how to destroy each of his Horcruxes. "She knew," Hermione said, her voice filled with awe. She knew about the Horcruxes centuries before Voldemort even existed. She predicted that someone would try to achieve immortality through dark magic. Harry's heart raced. Did she find a way to destroy them? Hermione nodded, her eyes shining. She did. It's all here, everything we need to finish what Regulus started. The knowledge from the Dagworth Granger archives gave Harry and Hermione a new sense of purpose. They spent hours studying Elara's journals, learning about the nature of Horcruxes and the methods needed to destroy them. They discovered that each Horcrux was protected by a specific type of magic, and that destroying them required a combination of skill, courage, and sacrifice. But they also discovered something else, something that made Hermione's heart ache with hope. She knew, Hermione said, her voice barely above a whisper. She knew about the bond. About the connection between the true heir of House Black and the heir of Dagworth Granger. Harry's eyes widened. What do you mean? Hermione held up the journal, her hands trembling. She wrote about it, about the prophecy. She said that the bond would be the key to defeating the darkness. That two souls, bound together by destiny and love, would be stronger than any evil. Harry reached out and took her hand. Then we'll prove her right. We'll destroy the Horcruxes. We'll defeat Voldemort. And we'll do it together. Hermione nodded, her eyes shining with tears. Together. The revelation of Hermione's heritage changed everything. She was no longer just a Muggle-born witch, an outsider in a world that didn't fully accept her. She was the heir of Dagworth Granger, a descendant of one of the oldest and most respected magical families in history. She had a legacy, a purpose, a place in this world. And she had Harry. I always felt like I didn't belong, Hermione admitted one evening, as they sat together in the library of Grimmauld Place. Like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. But now I know the truth. This is who I am. This is where I belong. Harry squeezed her hand. You've always belonged, Hermione. With me. With our friends. With the world we're building together. Hermione smiled, her heart full. I know that now. And I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to fight for this world, for our future, for everything we believe in. Harry leaned in and pressed a kiss to her forehead. And I'm going to be right beside you. Always. The end of Chapter 8. Chapter 9, The Black Family Vaults. The deepest vaults of Gringotts were not meant for the living. Harry had known this the moment he'd first descended into the cavernous depths of the Goblin Bank, but he hadn't fully understood it until now. The air grew colder with each passing level, the darkness thicker, the silence more oppressive. It was like descending into the underworld itself, a place where the dead guarded their secrets with jealous fury. But Harry was not afraid. He had Hermione at his side, her hand warm in his, her presence a beacon of light in the suffocating darkness. He had Creature, whose gnarled fingers gripped the edge of the cart with white-knuckled determination. And he had the key, the silver key that had been left for him by Regulus, glowing faintly in the gloom. Are you sure about this, Master Harry? Creature asked, his voice trembling. These vaults, they were sealed for a reason. The Black family's deepest secrets are not meant to be disturbed. Harry tightened his grip on the key. Regulus wanted me to find them. He left the key for me. I have to trust that he knew what he was doing. Creature's expression was troubled, but he nodded. Creature will follow Master Harry to the end. Creature will protect Master Harry with his life. Harry smiled, touched by the old elf's loyalty. Thank you, Creature. That means more than you know. The cart screeched to a halt at the bottom of the shaft, and Harry stepped out onto a stone platform that seemed to float in the void. Before him was a massive door, carved from obsidian and inlaid with silver runes that pulsed with a faint, malevolent light. The vault of the Black family. Harry approached the door, his heart pounding. He raised the key and pressed it into the lock, and the moment it clicked into place, the runes flared to life. The door groaned, grinding against the stone floor as it swung open, revealing a cavern that seemed to stretch into infinity. Inside was the collected wealth of centuries. Piles of gold and silver galleons towered to the ceiling, their surfaces gleaming in the eerie light. Jewels glittered in the darkness, emeralds, rubies, diamonds, and stones that Harry couldn't even name. There were weapons, too, swords and daggers and staffs that hummed with ancient power. And there were books, thousands of them, their spines cracked and faded with age. But in the center of the vault, on a pedestal of black marble, sat a single object. A locket. Harry's breath caught in his throat. It was identical to the one Regulus had stolen, the Horcrux that had been hidden in the cave. But this locket was different. It was larger, more ornate, and it pulsed with a dark energy that made Harry's skin crawl. "Is that—" Hermione began, her voice barely above a whisper. "A Horcrux," Harry finished. "Another one." The locket was not the only Horcrux in the vault. As Harry and Hermione explored the cavern, they discovered a collection of objects that had been hidden by the Black family over the centuries. Each one pulsed with dark magic, each one bore the unmistakable mark of Voldemort's soul. There was a diary, its pages yellowed and cracked, its cover embossed with the name T.M. Riddle. There was a cup, its surface tarnished and dull, its handle shaped like a badger. There was a diadem, its jewels tarnished and dark, its metal warped by dark magic. And there was a ring, its gold surface blackened and cracked, its stone a deep, malevolent red. Harry reached out to touch the ring, but Hermione grabbed his arm. "Don't," she said, her voice sharp with fear. "Can't you feel it? That ring is cursed. It's calling to you." Harry pulled his hand back, his heart pounding. He had felt it, the pull of the ring, the whisper of dark magic that seemed to beckon him closer. It was seductive, alluring, and deeply dangerous. "We need to destroy them," Harry said, his voice shaking. "All of them. We need to destroy every single Horcrux." Hermione nodded, her expression grim. "But we can't do it here. The magic in this vault, it's too strong. We need to take them somewhere safe, somewhere we can study them and find the right way to destroy them." Harry looked around the cavern, his mind racing. "There's too many of them. We can't carry them all." Creature stepped forward, his eyes gleaming. "Creature can help, Master Harry. Creature can carry the Horcruxes. Creature will not let them harm Master Harry." Harry hesitated. He knew the danger of the Horcruxes, the corrupting influence they had on anyone who touched them. But he also knew that Creature was loyal, that he would do anything to protect his master. "Are you sure, Creature?" Harry asked. "It's dangerous. The Horcruxes could—" "Creature is not afraid," the elf said firmly. "Creature has faced worse. Creature will protect Master Harry's legacy." Harry nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude. "Thank you, Creature. I won't forget this." The journey back to Grimmauld Place was tense. The Horcruxes were packed carefully in a magically expanded bag, their dark energy muted by layers of protective enchantments. But Harry could still feel them, their presence like a weight in the back of his mind, a whisper of darkness that never quite faded. Hermione sat beside him, her hand in his, her presence a shield against the despair that threatened to overwhelm him. "We're going to destroy them," she said, her voice firm. "All of them. We're going to finish what Regulus started." Harry nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about the ring, the way it had called to him, the way it had seemed to recognize him. It was a Horcrux, a piece of Voldemort's soul, and yet it had felt almost familiar. "Why did the ring call to me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It didn't call to you. It didn't call to Creature. It called to me." Hermione was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice thoughtful. "Perhaps it recognized you. Perhaps it sensed that you were the one who would destroy it." Harry shuddered. "Or perhaps it sensed that I'm connected to Voldemort. The prophecy, the scar, the wand core, there's something between us. Something that ties us together." Hermione squeezed his hand. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. We'll find a way to break the connection. We'll find a way to destroy the Horcruxes and defeat Voldemort once and for all." Harry looked at her, his heart aching with love and gratitude. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Hermione." Hermione smiled. "You'll never have to find out." The vault had revealed more than just Horcruxes. Among the treasure, Harry had discovered a series of journals written by Regulus in the final months of his life. They were filled with detailed notes about Voldemort's plans, the locations of the Horcruxes, and the methods needed to destroy them. But they also contained something else, something that made Harry's blood run cold. Regulus had discovered that Voldemort was planning to use ancient dark magic to create a new Horcrux, one that would be virtually indestructible. He had been racing against time to stop him, to find the ritual and destroy it before it could be completed. He had failed. But he had left behind the knowledge, the clues that would allow Harry to finish what he had started. "We have to find the ritual," Harry said, his voice urgent. "We have to stop Voldemort from creating another Horcrux." Hermione nodded, her expression grim. "I'll start researching immediately." "But Harry, if Voldemort is planning to create a new Horcrux, it means he's getting desperate. He knows we're hunting him. He's trying to protect himself." Harry felt a chill run down his spine. "Then we need to move faster. We need to destroy the Horcruxes we have and find the ones we're missing. We can't let him complete the ritual." Hermione reached out and took his hand. "We won't. I promise." The research was grueling. Hermione spent every waking moment in the library, poring over ancient texts and obscure manuscripts. Harry helped when he could, but his attention was divided. The Horcruxes called to him constantly, their dark whispers a constant presence in the back of his mind. And then there was the ring. The ring had been placed in a separate vault, sealed with layers of protective magic. But Harry could still feel it, its malevolent presence, a weight that pressed down on him like a physical force. It was calling to him, and he didn't know why. "Harry, you need to focus," Hermione said one evening, her voice sharp with concern. "You've been staring at that wall for 10 minutes. What's going on?" Harry blinked, realizing that he had lost track of time. "The ring," he said, his voice hollow. "I can hear it. It's calling to me." Hermione's face paled. "Calling to you? What do you mean?" Harry shook his head, trying to clear the fog from his mind. "It's like it's trying to tell me something. Like it wants me to touch it. To use it." Hermione moved closer, her hand finding his. "Don't listen to it, Harry. It's dark magic. It's trying to corrupt you." Harry nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. The ring's whispers were growing louder, more insistent, and he knew that he would have to face it eventually. The next day, Harry made a decision. He was going to destroy the ring. Not through research or study, but through direct action. He was going to confront the Horcrux and destroy it, once and for all. "Harry, that's insane!" Hermione exclaimed, when he told her his plan. "We don't even know what the ring is capable of. You could be killed." Harry met her gaze, his expression resolute. "I have to do this, Hermione. The ring is calling to me. It's trying to control me. If I don't destroy it, it will destroy me." Hermione's eyes filled with tears. "Then let me help you. Let me come with you." Harry shook his head. "No. I need you to stay here. To protect the other Horcruxes. If something happens to me..." "Nothing is going to happen to you," Hermione said fiercely. "I won't allow it." Harry smiled, reaching out to cup her cheek. "I love you, Hermione. That's why I have to do this. I have to protect you, protect our future. And the only way to do that is to destroy the darkness that threatens us." Hermione's tears fell freely, but she nodded. "Then go. But promise me you'll come back. Promise me you won't." "I promise," Harry said. "I'll always come back to you." The vault where the ring was stored was deep beneath Gringotts, sealed with magic that only the true heir of House Black could unlock. Harry stood before the door, his heart pounding. He could feel the ring calling to him, its whispers growing louder, more seductive. It promised power, immortality, the ability to defeat Voldemort once and for all. But Harry knew better. He knew that the ring's promises were lies, that its power would corrupt him just as it had corrupted Voldemort. He raised his wand and whispered the incantation that Regulus had left in his journals. The door swung open, revealing a small, circular room. In the center, on a pedestal of black marble, sat the ring. Harry approached it slowly, his wand raised. The ring pulsed with dark magic, its whispers filling his mind with images of power and glory. "Take me," the ring whispered. Asterisk. "Use me. I can give you everything you desire." Asterisk. Harry gritted his teeth, forcing the whispers out of his mind. "I don't want your power," he said, his voice shaking. "I want to destroy you." The ring seemed to laugh. Asterisk. "You cannot destroy me. I am part of the Dark Lord. I am part of you." Asterisk. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Part of him. The ring was part of him, just as the scar on his forehead was part of him. They were connected, bound together by the magic that had tried to kill him and failed. But he couldn't let that stop him. He had to destroy the ring, no matter the cost. He raised his wand and cast the spell that Regulus had left behind, a spell of pure destruction, fueled by love and sacrifice and the will to protect. The ring shattered. And with it, a piece of Voldemort's soul was destroyed forever. The explosion of magic threw Harry against the wall. He felt the ring's death like a wound in his own soul, a searing pain that made him cry out in agony. But then the pain faded, replaced by a sense of peace. The whispers were gone. The darkness was gone. He had destroyed the Horcrux. Harry slumped against the wall, his body trembling with exhaustion. He had never felt so drained, so empty. But he had also never felt so free. He had done it. He had destroyed a Horcrux, something Regulus had only dreamed of. And he had survived. The journey back to Grimmauld Place was a blur. Harry collapsed into Hermione's arms the moment he stepped through the door, his body giving out from the strain of the spell. Hermione held him, tears streaming down her cheeks, whispering words of comfort and love. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." Harry nodded weakly. "I destroyed the ring. It's gone." Hermione kissed his forehead, her lips warm against his skin. "You're a hero, Harry. The hero Regulus always believed you could be." Harry smiled, his eyes closing. "We did it together. You and me. Always." Hermione held him close, her heart full of love and pride. He had destroyed a Horcrux. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. And she knew, with a certainty that went beyond words, that they would destroy the rest. Together. The end of Chapter 9. Chapter 10, Sirius learns the truth. The first time Harry saw his godfather in the flesh, he almost didn't recognize him. The man who stepped through the fireplace of Grimmauld Place was a shadow of the dashing rogue Harry had seen in the old photographs. Sirius Black was thin, gaunt, with hollow cheeks and wild, haunted eyes. His hair was long and matted, his clothes ragged and stained. He looked like a man who had been through hell, and in many ways he had. "Sirius!" Harry breathed, his heart pounding. Sirius's eyes found him, and for a moment, the haunted look faded. A smile, tentative, fragile, but genuine, spread across his face. "Harry," he said, his voice rough with emotion. You're so big. You look just like your father." Harry felt tears prick at his eyes. He rushed forward, and Sirius caught him in a fierce embrace, holding him as if he would never let go. "I've waited so long to meet you," Sirius whispered. "So long." Harry pulled back, his eyes scanning Sirius's face. I thought you were in Azkaban." Sirius's smile faded. "I was. But I escaped. I had to find you. I had to." He paused, his expression darkening. "I heard about the will. About Regulus." Harry's heart clenched. "You know about Regulus?" Sirius nodded slowly. "I know he chose you as his heir. I know he left you the house, the vaults, everything. But I don't understand why. Regulus and we weren't close. We had our differences. Why would he choose my godson? Harry took a deep breath. Because he knew I would carry on his work. He knew I would finish what he started. Sirius's eyes narrowed. What work? Harry reached into his pocket and pulled out the Horcrux locket, the one Regulus had stolen from the cave. He was trying to destroy Voldemort. He found one of his Horcruxes, but he couldn't destroy it. He died trying. Sirius stared at the locket, his face going pale. A Horcrux? Regulus found a Horcrux? Harry nodded. He left me instructions. Journals, clues, everything I need to destroy the rest of them. He chose me because he believed I could finish what he started. Sirius was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he sank into a nearby chair, his face buried in his hands. Regulus, he whispered. My little brother. I thought he was lost to the darkness. I thought he believed in all that pure-blood nonsense. But he was fighting against it all along. Harry moved closer, placing a hand on Sirius's shoulder. He loved you, Sirius. He never stopped loving you. He wrote about you in his journals, about how much he missed you, how much he regretted the way things ended between you. Sirius looked up, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. He wrote about me? Harry nodded. He said you were the bravest person he ever knew. He said you showed him that there was another way. Sirius's tears fell freely now. I never knew. I was so angry at him. I thought he chose the darkness. I thought he betrayed everything I believed in. But he was just lost. And when he found his way back, he didn't have anyone to turn to. Harry squeezed his godfather's shoulder. He had Creature. And he had me, even if he didn't know it yet. Sirius looked up at Harry, his expression shifting from grief to gratitude. You're so much like him, Harry. So much like Regulus. The same fire, the same determination. He would have been so proud of you. Harry felt a warmth spread through his chest. I'm trying to be worthy of his legacy. I'm trying to finish what he started. Sirius nodded slowly. Then I'll help you. I'll do whatever it takes to help you destroy those Horcruxes and defeat Voldemort. It's the least I can do for Regulus. Harry smiled, his heart full. Thank you, Sirius. That means everything to me. The days that followed were filled with long conversations and shared memories. Sirius told Harry about his childhood, the stifling atmosphere of Grimmauld Place, the pressure to conform to his family's expectations, the growing rift between him and his brother. He spoke of Regulus with a mixture of grief and guilt, lamenting the years they had lost to pride and misunderstanding. He was always the favorite, Sirius said one evening, as they sat in the drawing room. My mother adored him. He could do no wrong. And I was the disappointment. The rebel. The one who couldn't be controlled. Harry listened in silence, his heart aching for both of them. But I never stopped loving him, Sirius continued. Even when he joined the Death Eaters, even when I thought he had become everything I hated, I never stopped loving him. He was my brother. He was the only one who understood what it was like to grow up in that house. Harry reached out and placed a hand on Sirius's arm. He loved you too, Sirius. I know he did. He wrote about you in his journals. He said you were the bravest person he ever knew. Sirius's eyes glistened. I wish I had known. I wish I had told him that I was proud of him. That I understood why he did what he did. Harry squeezed his arm. He knows now. He's watching over us, Sirius. I know he is. Sirius nodded, a tear slipping down his cheek. Thank you, Harry. For telling me the truth. For giving me a chance to make things right. The discovery of Regulus's true loyalties changed everything for Sirius. He threw himself into the mission with a fervor that surprised even Harry. He helped Hermione with her research, offering insights into the Black family's history and the dark magic that Voldemort used. He trained Harry in defensive spells, pushing him to become stronger, faster, more skilled. And he shared memories of Regulus, stories from their childhood, moments of warmth and connection that had been buried under years of resentment and pain. He loved music, Sirius said one afternoon, as they practiced dueling in the drawing room. He was always humming some tune or another. Our mother used to tell him to stop, but he never could. It was like he had a song in his soul that he couldn't keep inside. Harry smiled, imagining a young Regulus, carefree and happy. He sounds like he was a good person. Sirius nodded, his expression wistful. He was. He was the best of us. He just lost his way for a while. Harry's heart ached. But he found his way back. In the end, he found his way back. Sirius met his gaze. Thanks to you? Thanks to the legacy he left behind. You're the one who's carrying his torch now, Harry. Don't ever forget that. The bond between Harry and Sirius deepened as they worked together. Harry had never had a father figure before, not really. The Dursleys had been cruel and dismissive, and his memories of his parents were faded and distant. But Sirius filled that void, offering guidance, support, and unconditional love. You're my godson, Sirius said one evening, as they sat together in the library. That means you're family. And family looks out for each other. Harry nodded, his throat tight with emotion. I never had family before. Not really. But now I feel like I do. Sirius smiled, reaching out to ruffle Harry's hair. You've always had family, Harry. You just didn't know it. But the reunion was not without its tensions. Sirius was fiercely protective of Harry, and his hatred for the Dursleys burned with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He wanted to confront them, to make them pay for the years of neglect and abuse Harry had suffered. And Harry, who had spent years trying to forget his childhood, found the prospect deeply uncomfortable. They don't matter, Harry said one evening, when Sirius brought up the subject again. They're not worth your anger. Sirius's eyes blazed. They hurt you, Harry. They made you feel worthless. They deserve nothing. Harry interrupted, his voice firm. They're nothing. They've always been nothing. And I refuse to let them take up any more space in my head. Sirius stared at him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. You're right, he said. They're not worth it. You're so much stronger than they ever were. Harry smiled. I had good teachers. Sirius also struggled with his own guilt. He blamed himself for Regulus's death, for the years of estrangement that had kept them apart. He blamed himself for not seeing the truth sooner, for not reaching out when Regulus had needed him most. I should have been there, Sirius said one night, his voice raw with emotion. I should have known that he was in trouble. I should have. You couldn't have known, Harry said gently. Regulus kept his secrets close. He didn't want anyone to know what he was doing. Sirius shook his head. I was his brother. I should have sensed something. I should have. Sirius, stop. Harry's voice was firm. You can't change the past. All you can do is honor his memory by finishing what he started. Sirius looked up at Harry, his eyes red-rimmed. You're right. I know you're right. But it's hard. It's so hard to let go of the guilt. Harry reached out and placed a hand on Sirius's shoulder. I know. But you don't have to carry it alone. We're in this together. All of us. Sirius nodded, a fragile smile spreading across his face. Thank you, Harry. For everything. The most emotional moment came when Harry gave Sirius Regulus's final journal. It was the last one, the one Regulus had written in the days before his death. The pages were filled with raw, honest reflections on his life, his regrets, and his hopes for the future. Sirius opened the journal with trembling hands, his eyes scanning the familiar handwriting. My dearest Sirius, the final entry read. Asterisk. If you are reading this, then I am gone, and you have found the truth I could never tell you in life. I want you to know that I always loved you. Even when I was lost, even when I made terrible choices, I never stopped loving you. You were always the bravest, the strongest, the most brilliant person I ever Knew. I was so proud of you, Sirius. So proud. I know I didn't always show it. I know I let my pride and my fear get in the way. But I want you to know the truth now. You were my hero. You always were. I love you, brother. I will always love you. Asterisk. Sirius closed the journal, his face wet with tears. He clutched it to his chest, his body shaking with silent sobs. I love you too, he whispered. I always have. Harry watched, his own eyes burning, as Sirius mourned the brother he had lost. It was a moment of profound grief, but also of profound healing. Regulus's truth had finally set Sirius free. The aftermath of the revelation was transformative. Sirius emerged from his grief with a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to honor Regulus's memory, to finish what his brother had started. And he was equally determined to protect Harry, to guide him, to be the father figure he had never had. Regulus believed in you, Sirius said one day, as they stood together on the roof of Grimmauld Place, watching the stars. He believed that you would be the one to defeat Voldemort. And I believe it too. Harry looked up at the sky, at the star that bore Regulus's name. I'll try. I'll try to be worthy of that belief. Sirius placed a hand on his shoulder. You already are, Harry. You already are. The end of Chapter 10. Chapter 11, The Circle of Ancient Houses. The invitation arrived on a silver tray, carried by a ghostly owl that dissolved into mist the moment it delivered its message. Harry stared at the parchment, his heart pounding. The seal was unlike any he had seen before, a complex interlocking pattern of stars and serpents, vines and ancient runes. At the center was a single word, embossed in gold: conclave. What is it? Hermione asked, moving to stand beside him. Harry handed her the parchment. It's an invitation. From the Circle of Ancient Houses. Hermione's eyes widened as she read. The Circle? Harry, this is huge. The Circle hasn't convened in over a century. They only gather when something of monumental importance is at stake. Harry nodded slowly, his mind racing. They want to determine whether I'm worthy to lead House Black. Whether I deserve to carry the legacy Regulus left me. Hermione looked up from the parchment, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. This could be a trap. Voldemort has followers in the old families. They might try to use this as an opportunity to kill me? Harry finished. I know. But I have to go. This is my chance to prove myself. To show them that House Black can be redeemed. Hermione reached out and took his hand. Then I'm coming with you. Harry shook his head. Hermione, the invitation was addressed to the Lord of House Black. It says I must attend alone. I don't care what it says, Hermione said fiercely. I'm not letting you face this alone. The bond, we're stronger together. You know that. Harry smiled, squeezing her hand. I know. But this is something I have to do on my own. I have to earn their respect as the heir of House Black, not as Harry Potter with his brilliant girlfriend at his side. Hermione's eyes glistened. Promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you'll come back. Harry leaned in and pressed his forehead to hers. I promise. I'll always come back to you. The conclave was held in a place that existed between worlds, a pocket dimension that had been created centuries ago by the founding families of the wizarding world. Harry arrived through a portal that materialized in the heart of Grimmauld Place, stepping into a vast, circular chamber that seemed to stretch into infinity. The walls were made of obsidian, polished to a mirror shine, and the floor was a mosaic of stars and constellations. At the center of the room was a round table, carved from a single piece of ancient oak, its surface inlaid with gold and silver. Around the table sat representatives of the ancient houses, men and women whose lineage stretched back to the dawn of magic itself. They were dressed in robes of deep velvet and rich silk, their faces unreadable masks of aristocratic disdain. Harry felt their eyes on him as he approached the table. He could feel their judgment, their suspicion, their barely concealed contempt. But he also felt their curiosity. The House of Black had been dark and corrupt for so long that the idea of redemption seemed impossible. And yet here he was, a Potter, a Gryffindor, a boy who had been raised by Muggles, claiming the legacy of one of the most powerful families in wizarding history. "Lord Black," a voice said, cutting through the silence. "We have been expecting you." Harry turned to face the speaker, a tall, silver-haired woman with piercing gray eyes and an expression of cold authority. She was seated at the head of the table, her robes embroidered with the crest of House Greengrass. "Lady Greengrass," Harry said, inclining his head. "Thank you for the invitation." Lady Greengrass's lips curved into a thin smile. "The invitation was not a courtesy, Lord Black. It was a summons. The Circle of Ancient Houses has convened to determine whether you are worthy of the legacy you claim." Harry met her gaze without flinching. "Then I welcome the opportunity to prove myself." The other representatives exchanged glances. One of them, a stout man with a walrus mustache and the crest of House Malfoy, snorted with derision. "You cannot be serious," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "This boy is a half-blood. He was raised by Muggles. He knows nothing of the traditions of the ancient houses. How can he possibly be worthy of the Black legacy?" Harry turned to face him, his expression calm. "You're right. I was raised by Muggles. I know nothing of the traditions you value so highly. But I know what it means to fight for what's right. I know what it means to sacrifice everything for the people you love. And I know that the House of Black, whatever its history, can be a force for good in this world." The man's eyes narrowed. "You speak of sacrifice as if you understand it. You are a child, Potter. What do you know of sacrifice?" Harry felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I know that Regulus Black sacrificed his life to destroy a Horcrux. I know that my parents sacrificed their lives to protect me. I know that I have sacrificed my childhood, my safety, my peace of mind to carry on the legacy he left me. And I would do it all again, 1,000 times over, if it meant defeating Voldemort and bringing peace to the wizarding world." The chamber fell silent. Harry could feel the weight of their stares, their judgment, their curiosity. And then Lady Greengrass spoke. "You speak well, Lord Black. But words are cheap. The Circle of Ancient Houses does not judge by rhetoric alone. We judge by deeds, by lineage, by the strength of one's magic." Harry inclined his head. "Then let me prove myself. Name your test." Lady Greengrass smiled, a cold, calculating smile. "There are 3 tests. Each one will challenge your courage, your wisdom, and your magic. If you pass all 3, you will be recognized as the true Lord of House Black. If you fail—" She paused, her eyes glinting. "You will forfeit the Black legacy forever." Harry's heart pounded, but he didn't hesitate. "I accept." The first test was one of courage. Harry was led to a chamber that was filled with darkness. The air was cold and still, and the floor beneath his feet was slick with moisture. He could hear the sound of water dripping somewhere in the distance, and the faint whisper of something moving in the shadows. "Face your fear." Lady Greengrass's voice echoed from behind him. "Show us that you are worthy of the Black legacy." Harry stepped forward, his wand raised, his heart pounding. He had faced fear before, the fear of the Dursleys, the fear of Voldemort, the fear of losing the people he loved. But this was different. This fear was primal, ancient, and it seemed to seep into his very bones. And then he saw it. A figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, gaunt figure with hollow eyes and a skeletal face. It was Voldemort, or rather, a representation of him, his red eyes gleaming with malevolent intelligence. "Harry Potter," the figure hissed. "You cannot defeat me. You are nothing but a boy, a child playing at being a hero." Harry's grip on his wand tightened. "I'm not afraid of you." The figure laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "You should be. I killed your parents. I will kill everyone you love. I will destroy everything you hold dear." Harry felt a surge of anger, hot and fierce. "You can try. But I will stop you. I will destroy you. I will avenge everyone you've hurt." The figure lunged forward, its skeletal hands reaching for Harry's throat. But Harry was faster. He cast a shield charm, and the figure rebounded, crashing into the wall with a shriek of rage. "You cannot harm me," Harry said, his voice steady. "You are nothing but a shadow. A ghost. And I will not let you control me." The figure dissolved into mist, and the darkness faded. Harry was standing in the chamber, his wand still raised, his heart still pounding. But he had passed the test. The second test was one of wisdom. Harry was led to a library that was vast beyond imagining. Bookshelves stretched to the ceiling, filled with tomes and scrolls from every corner of the wizarding world. In the center of the room was a table, and on the table was a single parchment. "Solve the riddle," Lady Greengrass's voice intoned. "Show us that you are worthy of the Black Legacy." Harry approached the table and read the parchment. Asterisk. "I am always in the light, yet I am born of shadow. I am the first in every battle, the last in every war. I am the fire that consumes, the ice that preserves. What am I?" Asterisk. Harry frowned, thinking. The answer wasn't obvious. It was meant to be a challenge, a test of his wisdom and insight. He thought about the Black Legacy, about the darkness that had consumed the family for centuries. He thought about Regulus, about his sacrifice, his redemption. He thought about the bond he shared with Hermione, the love that had given him strength. And then he understood. "Hope," he said aloud. "The answer is hope." The parchment dissolved into golden light, and Lady Greengrass's voice echoed in the chamber. "You have passed the second test, Lord Black. One more remains." The third test was one of magic. Harry was led to a chamber that was filled with ancient artifacts, swords and shields, amulets and rings, each one pulsing with power. In the center of the room was a pedestal, and on the pedestal was a single object, the sword of Godric Gryffindor. "Prove your worth," Lady Greengrass's voice commanded. "Take the sword and show us that you are worthy of the Black Legacy." Harry approached the pedestal, his heart pounding. The sword gleamed in the dim light, its blade etched with runes that seemed to shimmer with their own inner fire. He reached out and took the sword. The moment his fingers closed around the hilt, he felt a surge of power, a connection to the ancient magic of the Founders, to the courage and nobility of Godric Gryffindor himself. The sword seemed to sing in his hands, its blade blazing with a golden light. And then he heard a voice, a woman's voice, soft and warm. Asterisk. "You are worthy, Harry Potter. You have the courage of a Gryffindor, the wisdom of a Ravenclaw, the loyalty of a Hufflepuff, and the ambition of a Slytherin. You are the heir that House Black has been waiting for." Asterisk. Harry bowed his head, overwhelmed by the weight of the moment. The sword hummed in his hands, its magic merging with his own. He had passed the third test. The circle reconvened in the main chamber. Harry stood before the representatives of the ancient houses, the sword of Godric Gryffindor at his side. He could feel their eyes on him, their respect, their grudging admiration. "You have passed the test," Lady Greengrass said, her voice ringing through the chamber. "You have proven your courage, your wisdom, and your magic. The circle of ancient houses recognizes you as the true Lord of House Black." Harry felt a surge of relief, but he didn't let it show. He stood tall, meeting their gazes with unwavering confidence. "The House of Black is reborn," he said. "Not as a house of darkness, but as a house of hope. I will not let you down." Lady Greengrass inclined her head. "We believe you, Lord Black. The Circle stands ready to support you in the fight against Voldemort." Harry smiled, his heart full. He had done it. He had proven himself worthy of Regulus's legacy. And now, with the support of the ancient houses, he would finish what Regulus had started. The end of Chapter 11. Thank you.